Greetings, gamers, and welcome to the 160th live stream from the Misfit Gamer Studios. I am your host, Vortex, and this is D&D Discussions. On today's episode, we have episode number 2 of one of our newest series, Image to Item. We had such a good success last week that we're going to do it again. We had so many submissions that we wanted to get through a couple more before we moved on to our regularly scheduled Friday programming. So, this week we're going to do this, and then next week we're going to get back to a history of, because we have a history of, I don't know what we're going to call it, magic, not really magic. We've done a history of magic, but that was more like magical spell casting. This one's going to be more a history of magical creatures and what it means to be magical. So we'll figure out what the title is for that. But today, that is not what we're here for. Today, we are here to turn some more images into items. So strap in, and I hope you enjoy the stream. We had a really fun time last week doing this.
Yes,
and I really hope that this continues. I hope we continue to get submissions. I think chat really had a lot of fun.
I think so too. I know I did for sure. Like it really helps to like move your mind forward in a certain direction to like just get the ball rolling and start like understanding like how you desire to come up with things and create things and build things and like what you want your structure to look like that you're building out.
I'm going to build on that and say even further, it helps you maintain consistency in the long run. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of the times we are building for necessity. So we have an idea for the campaign, the gaming session, or we need to fill a need. We have this void and we're like, I need an item that will do that. And we get so good at that. We get so good at building items for their intended purpose. And we're good at making that make sense in the lore, and we're good at balancing it in a when the players experience it moment. The problem, though, is we get so used to that process, fill the need, make it make sense, and make it balanced, that after a while you get so into that structure that, kind of like homebrew review, you start to lean into a setting specific mindset. It starts to fit too well into your gaming style,
right? Your
DMing style, your storyline. So I really appreciate this because it takes us out of that mindset of necessity and we're creating purely out of fun, but still based on our own rules.
Sure.
So while we're creating things that I may or may not put in High Point, you may or may not use in the Cineverse.
Sure.
We are building it based on the very rules that we would have created something, but we're not filling a need. We're not doing it. I'm not building something for High Point because I need something there.
Very much so.
And that's what makes me better now, is because as we do this and as we discuss, right? Last week we had different ideas, but we came to a better decision that we knew would be more universally acceptable to anybody.
Yes.
And by doing so, that rebalances me. So when I go back to High Point, I have that in mind of, to be fair, this is really, really good, but I got to remember people aren't always from my same environment. People are playing in High Point, but not all of my players are originally from High Point. Sure. They may have come from 5th edition. They may have come from other areas and other gaming sessions and other settings. So to remind myself that while I make really, really good things for High Point, sometimes they just have to be for D&D. Like sometimes they have to be for D&D and not for High Point. Okay. And that goes for everybody.
That's fair enough.
Because we've seen this in like a lot of the races and subclasses that we get. Well, not a lot. Some of the races and subclasses that we get, while good and usable, seem better in the right setting, or when you know who the author is and what they build,
the right realm,
and the way that they operate, you're like, oh, I totally understand. That's perfect for you.
Right.
I can. But when you go, but assuming I take that to this person, it may not be as strong because of the way that they game, or the world that they game in, and the interactions that they have, or the types of combat.
Or it could be the opposite. It could be way too powerful. It could just not be something that functions well in an environment like that.
Exactly. I find that this is, I think, I've been trying to find better ways to identify and describe, because I always mention the difference between me being a 2nd edition mindset.
Sure.
And I found, some ways to talk about it. I mean, in one respect, it's more on the DM than it is on the players. That's one way to talk about it. When I say 2nd edition mindset versus 5th edition mindset.
Sure.
I also mean it in terms of like lore, like how Forgotten Realms originally started, and more based on that timeline history, like more or less in the 2nd edition timeline is more or less where I work within. And also, in terms of, I've also made the analogy to it's more narrative based than it is mechanics based.
Very much
Right?
so.
It's much more about the story and the progression of the characters and their individual plots and story arcs versus how powerful they are, what creatures they're fighting, what weapons they're getting, right? All of that is more that's built along the way instead of pre-designed, right?
Sure.
So those are some of the ways that I've tried to talk about what I mean by I'm second edition, edition minded. But I've also been looking at different ways to expand on, what I mean. And when it comes to creating the items, I feel like it's also brought me to an idea of the difference in how balancing works and how you implement something, not just introduce it, but implement it into the game, right? Because I'm very much, I get so into what makes sense to be there.
Yeah.
And while it makes sense, while it's balanced, while you would probably more times than not never think twice about something you interacted with along the way because in context it was in the background like it should have been.
Right.
A lot of the times I feel that looking at how 5th edition does it and how a lot of newer DMs, show things off, I feel like there is a little bit of lost in translation because while I do good at letting people know things stand out, that's no longer the gameplay. Back in the day, if I take people who have been playing D&D for more than 20 years, or at least 15, I'll say 15 years, right?
Sure.
And I make a point to point someone's shield out, make sure it's extra shiny, has a certain symbol. That will cue people in on certain things, but I don't see that in 5th edition as much. A lot of the times it's more overt.
So this is very, very interesting that you're bringing this up. I spoke with you a little bit before we started about a game that I had recently.
Yes.
And so I feel like this whole conversation is helping me to realize something because the interaction, that I had at the table was so interesting for me to feel out. All right. 3 of the players I had played with in my realm before, and they'd already created characters. And one of the players was brand new and was just like, hey, let me just create a character because I'm now a part of this whole D&D crew that we have right now.
Right.
And so when I go to play this game, of recent times, I am only used to playing with my students.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that's the only of recent DM experience that I have. And so I'm trying to find a way to bring these people into my world because I've done one shots for a People's Paragon adventure that they did at the community center that I go to. But that was in somebody else's world. So I was just making a little thing, do it in their world, have a little bit of fun,
gotcha.
And then come back to my
more moderating than DMing.
Yes. And
you were in control, but again, you were more of a referee in someone else's game.
Yes, that's exactly what it felt like.
It's similar to how when you brought me into the Cineverse to help you run that gaming session.
Yes.
While I had certain authority, it was certainly more of a moderation or a referee, more of a high level NPC than it was I wasn't DMing or making any calls. But we've had that kind of conversation about what it means to allow someone else to DM part of your story, right? Whether it is the Adventure League, that's a little bit of a different. That's expected. That's expected. But we've talked about what that could mean to have someone DM a dip into your storyline and into your world to use some of the things that you have. And I find that always fascinating if people can learn different ways to make it make sense on why certain characters can dip into how you and I would make it make sense that your players could come to High Point temporarily as their characters,
sure.
Or vice versa. Somehow Vixie takes one of her characters and gets to go to the Cineverse, but then comes back with that knowledge, but gets to play that same character with that knowledge back in High Point.
That would be
and
that would be wild.
And I always love thinking about because it's things matter to me, so it's always really important on how that would work. But
Sure.
I do like the idea.
So, but I finally got to play in the Cineverse again, and so it was a very delicate dip back in for me.
And these were adults, correct?
Yes,
This
these
is
are
like
these are adults.
Is it
These
your
are- these are
first
peers.
adult session into the Cineverse?
No. So, again, three of them had gamed in it earlier, and they had already had some like characters developed a little bit.
Okay,
like, we
gotcha.
played like a season-ish, but this was a while back, right? And so we were just now trying to get back into it, and it was so interesting because when you were talking just now, I felt like I understood the difference in what was happening with how they were responding to what I was presenting them, because it really felt like when I game with you, I feel like I understand what it is that I'm here for. Like what I'm at this table for is going to be development into a character. Right. And so when I'm playing with these different people at the table, I'm realizing that they're used to playing in games that aren't this.
Yes.
Like all of them, except for one, is used to playing in games other than this. One of them has only ever played in these type of games that we play.
And I don't want to call these games cookie cutter, but these are the almost like, and not in an insulting way, but almost like an ad lib kind of game. Insert character here, insert plot here, insert enemy here. Kind of like it reads like an ad lib, right? Like our heroes are going on a, quest, adventure, redemption arc.
Are you talking about in the Cineverse?
No. Like the regular, like what you're talking about, like the what they're used to. They're not used to the storytelling. They're more used to like the.
A lot of them started by running modules,
Okay.
right? And
That's
then
what
they
I mean
kind
by,
of
like,
adapt, and then they adapted these modules into their own stories, and so like
Nice.
they will like kind of like weave them together as like different plots of the same bigger story or whatever, so like your characters can move through
Honestly, that
different
is-
like modules and stuff like that.
I can't believe we haven't brought that up before. It's actually a really good way for DMs that feel they're confident and ready to start building their own world but don't know where to start,
Mhm.
but really have a good stronghold. Like me, I kind of
And they do such a good job, yeah,
right,
yeah.
because I kind of like went from like I didn't play Forgotten Realms modules, but I kind of took that knowledge and that framework of how that world played out and was like kind of like thinking about that and being like, well, what would happen 1,000 years later, going a different route, right? So I like that. I think that that's such a unique and a great way for new DMs who want to build
cool.
their own world. Take all the modules you've ran, and basically, like if you've ran a dungeon and you've ran like a castle and you've ran a mansion, put them all in the same town. Put the dungeon just outside or underneath the mansion, and put the castle like at the ruins just outside of town. And then if you have another random dungeon that's kind of small, just make that the tunnel that connects the one dungeon underneath the mansion to the ruins, and boom, now you're actually starting to build your own world, because while you have these modules that help you put together these sections, you've now put all of this in the same area, and then you start to change the people, start to change the names, and eventually you just adapt it and evolve it to things that make more sense for you. Maybe eventually that dungeon doesn't make sense to have lizard folk, maybe you turn it all into skeletons. Maybe the ruins doesn't make sense to have vampires, so you change it to like ghosts and stuff, right? Like maybe that's your theme. So
Right.
Maybe you don't want that. Maybe you want werewolves, so you're like, oh, all the werewolves are outside by the ruins, and I turn the ruins into a graveyard. Like you could literally have the same traps, you can have all the same instances, but you can take the general setting and be like, I want a graveyard instead of just ruins. It's like, well, it's all still either a stone building or just a bunch of stones in a field, but you know what I mean? Like you could still have the same development. It's still there's still the same like walkthrough.
Right.
So that's such a good idea. I like that they were
It's
doing
very
that.
cool.
It's so
very cool. It's very cool. So but no, it was just a wonderful experience. But I recognize that there are times where I I am trying to lay out the groundwork for a story that's happening. And the things that I bring to the table, I feel like are directly related to that story. And so a lot of the times, and it's hard because when mechanics interact with lore and story, it becomes challenging, because it's like, I want the world to make sense, to make as much sense as possible. And it's really hard to do that when you feel like just because this is what the mechanics say, you should just be able to do the thing. And so I am inputting reasons for that. So there was an incident towards the end of the episode.
I was gonna say, do you have an example?
Yes.
I mean, like, I get what you're saying, but it's like one of those things where it's like, not in a bad way, but kind of almost like business speak, where I'm like, I totally get what you're saying, but there's a lot of context we don't have.
Yes.
And so it's like, I really, yeah.
So the example is, there was a character who is developing psychic abilities, right? And so one of their abilities, they have the spell, what the heck is it called? Oh, hats off. All right.
We're gonna go with the cabbie look. Oh, you're gonna do the
We're
thing.
no gangster today.
I'm gonna try to do the leather hat that's fitted to my head specifically.
Is it? Well,
there you go. Hey, it's on there. That's
We're
all.
making
that
it work.
matters.
We're making it work.
I'm the cabbie today. I like this little cabbie hat.
I love it. I love it. But this person had that's what I was doing. I was looking up the spell. It should be here.
So if I understand correctly, while you're looking that up, so the sense is that you're, instead of doing the, here's the world you're in, here's the reason you're here, and here's what you're about to go do, you're doing the breadcrumb aspect of, hey, here's the world that's right around you, here's who you are up to this point, let's kind of get a reason for what's going to happen in the future. So you haven't really told them the big story arc. It's more of a let's get through the intro.
It's I don't really have that type of, let me see if I can explain this right. It's not so much that there is an intro or a story. Like, the way I do it is, when you give me your character and what it is that you want to be, I say, okay, there needs to be a reason for you to be with all of these people.
Right.
And so my goal is to find out what connects you to the rest of the people that are in this group. And that's how I begin to weave my story, weave what I lay out for these people. And once I have that, once I know what connects them in this world, then I introduce them to how that connection connects to these people.
Right.
And so they follow that to unify them in their united mission.
Instead of just starting with the premise of, y'all have a backstory, but yada yada yada, you're now together, let's go.
Right.
You actually do the build-up of, this is how we got here today.
Yes, and this is why, and like them unraveling like what it is that they seek out in their life, in their world, like the couple of things like in my session zeros that I have to have for all of my players is, I need to know why you're doing whatever it is that you're doing, like what it is that you're traveling for, that you're out here for, that you're seeking, like whatever. Like, it's super important for me to know what motivates you to do whatever it is you're doing, because that's what you're going to follow, that's what you want to interact with, that's what you want to explore. And so I want to show you how you can go about doing that and how you can go about seeking that out. And if it's really going to motivate your decisions, right? We were talking about alignment earlier, like the mindset of like what helps you motivate your decisions. Like, well, this is the fuel in your tank. This is what's saying, this is how I'm going to get you to wherever it is that you want to go. So once you tell me that, like, I want to make sure that that leads each and every one of these characters to each other. Like, it's still their own individual paths. They're their own strings that they're going to eventually go their separate
eventually
ways.
you still have to, why are these individuals going to stay together?
Right. And it's,
So is this what they weren't really used to? Is this build up of the party?
I think yes. I think a lot of them are just used to, again, when you're running through a module, you're just there because you're running the module. So like, let's all run this dungeon or this thing. And so like, that's probably the mindset that they all have coming to the table, is that, hey, we're just here to run this module and like see how our builds interact with the world, with the combat encounters, with the X, Y, and Z. And so while that's theoretically you can do that here, like it is a lot more motivated, not just for the desire of the interaction with the mechanics, but it's for what it is that your character's after. And I realize that disconnect a lot of the times overall.
So not only were they not used to this, but then you said that there was a point at which like conversations were, you said that you were having like, discussions about how you had to make these things make sense. So
yes. So I found the spell. Tech thoughts it had something to do.
Was it ESP?
No. It's like a first level spell.
Detect thoughts makes sense. Detect life. You know what they were trying to do?
They were trying to it's one of those ones where you can probe into the other person's mind to like read what they're thinking, and it starts with your surface level thoughts, and then you can go deeper.
I mean, I know the psionics. I was about to say probe.
Yeah,
I could have sworn ESP was the spell. I thought that was it.
There's no ESP spell that I'm aware of.
Then it might be detect thoughts.
Detect thoughts is a second level spell though. Actually, it might be though. 30 feet. Vision, surface thoughts. Shift your attention. Yeah, I think it is this one.
Okay. So one of them tried to use detect thoughts?
Yes, they tried to use detect thoughts. These guys are level 4 right now. Okay. So they just got attacked by this vampire that had brought its posse to attack this party that they were having.
Gotcha.
Right? They were in this celebration of this town. It's their sunshine festival, right? And all of a sudden,
perfect time for a vampire.
Of course, perfect time. Sun's gone down. It's like, hey guys, I'm gonna come here to get what I'm here for, right? And they called out the Fairborn family, this fanciful family, right?
Okay.
But the vampire, it's like sent out all its minions first to go do what it's going to do, and then most of them were getting beat up, and it was like, all right, like it's time for me to come in and finish the job, right? Now this is in my realm what I would call a cutscene of sorts, right?
Okay.
Because there's no way this party of level 4s is going to mess with an actual vampire, right?
No, and it makes sense. And again, we've had that conversation. Players need to respect cinematics as much as a DM needs to respect player agency, right? It's a give and take. The DM has to accept that the player, has to really give the players that autonomy. The players need to accept that there is a story.
Sure.
And sometimes, like, again, how many times do you watch a movie and you're mad at the main actor because you're just like, the whole movie you shoot before you think, like you should always shoot first, and the one time you're with the BBEG and you could stop the movie, you're gonna let him talk, you know what I mean? Like stupid moments like that, and it's like, why does that happen? It's not because our hero is just dumb for a moment. It's literally the cinematic. It wouldn't push the movie forward if he just shot him in the first scene. Like, you have to have that build up, and I think that's definitely a great point. Sometimes cinematics just need to be respected as long as they're not overused.
And it's not like I'd articulated that they were out of combat, right? Like they just killed, the idea was that there was this massive army of shadows encroaching on them, right? And there were these two more powerful characters that I didn't want to be a part of the combat, to just like let them wipe the floor with him, like, because they're much higher level than everybody else. So I articulated that there was this army of like encroaching enemies on the outside that these guys were fending off, while you guys were handling the people that were actually being attacked. Well, you guys were protecting them from this side. So it's like back to back, they're trying to protect these people, right? And so this is them trying to do their part on the other side, right? And the only NPC that was there was this kind of like snobby rich kid prince that was slightly higher level than them, but not so much higher level that it's going to make them just like wipe the floor with them.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
So like they finished this combat, right? And the vampire decides to finally show up, and he was like, all right, if you're gonna do something, like, you have to do it yourself. So he's gonna come in here and he's gonna do it himself, right?
Okay. And perfect, nice little cutscene, like, quote. Of course, that's like, you got to know who you're dealing with, right?
Right. And so then the other two characters that had been defending the backside, now that the majority of the enemies were mopped up, were able to turn their attention to this side of combat at about this time, and them demonstrating their skills and abilities, like basically 1-2 punched this vampire and just decapitated.
Okay, so that's the cinematic. Right?
That was the cinematic.
So the fake BBEG presents himself in the cinematic way, but then the two that were just kind of on the sidelines kind of takes care of it for a cinematic purpose.
Yes.
Okay.
Right?
I've been there. I've done that.
And then they were kind of like up there, there was a lot of other commotion going on. There had been some civilians that had been kind of turned throughout this combat, and so they needed like medically tending to and stuff. So like there's a lot of other stuff happening, and like the players had articulated what they were doing at this point to try and make sure everyone was okay now that they were outside of combat and whatnot. And so these two characters had taken them out and were having a conversation, right? They were talking in hushed tones or whatever, and everybody wants to know what they're talking about.
Gotcha.
Right? So they were they all wanted to do a perception check, but unfortunately they were not speaking in common. So I just asked what languages people knew, and nobody knew what it was. So
fair enough.
This character was like, bump that, like,
I'm just gonna go straight to the thoughts.
let me just go to your mind, right?
Cool. I love that.
Like,
I love that thinking.
And I'm here for it. Like, let's go for it, right? But again, these guys just took out a vampire, like, with a 1-2 punch without really even breaking us after they had been like, they're Gucci, right? So the idea is they are on a different level.
Okay.
Right? They're on a different scale than these guys. Like, imagine if you're in an anime, right? And you see the people that are like where you're trying to be, right? Like, you can say when that first time that like Gon and them walked into like level 11 in that tower or whatever, and they just like felt this like murderous aura emanating from this room, and they just like literally couldn't walk past the threshold. Like, that type of like, you recognize the difference in like. And so it's like, not to be like, you guys aren't anything, you know, like it's not with that mindset, but it's just.
But you were trying to set a precedent. You were trying to set the scales. You were trying to show off that these are a step above you.
Right. And so, but again, I want you to feel like what you have is not like useless. Like, it's not.
Right.
And so
you don't want to discredit the attempt, but you want to also recognize that there is a power difference here.
Yes. And so regardless of what was going on, there is one character that, because of what they are, and just in case any of my players, because I did tell one of my players about us, and he watches sometimes, in case any of them like watch this, like, I don't want to I don't want to say what it is yet. No spoilers. Exactly. All right. But because of what they are, when they went to detect their thoughts, they could not detect anything. They could not even try.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay.
What the things that they were trying to detect the thoughts of are.
Yes.
Not the player, but because of what they were trying to look at.
What they were trying to look at,
They got nothing from
they
it.
can't see anything.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And then they go to the other one and they can detect their thoughts. And so they're basically hearing one side of a two-sided conversation.
Interesting.
Type deal.
I love the intrigue. That's
right.
cool.
And so it's like you're getting like bits and pieces of what's going on, right? And so
honestly, it just so weird. I can't help but think that that's exactly what it feels like for an outside psionicist to run into you and Safia. Like to run into Olo and Safia is
that's
literally
kind of
like
that's kind of fair.
Oh, you're walled off. But you ain't. Until she goes, shut the fucking door. Stop. But yeah, that's hilarious because it just reminds me of you two.
But so but again, they're both on
the same level.
Potentially the same level, but potentially not.
So from the outside, you see two people obviously of a power level higher than you, but one you can't detect the thoughts of and one you can.
Yes.
So now the question is, you two look on the same level, much higher than me, but are you both equal higher than me, or is it just from my perspective I can't see that, you're actually higher than the next person?
Which is a valid point.
But I do like that. I do like that intrigue. That instantly makes me go, ooh, what's going on there?
Right. And so then in their side of the conversation, this is where it got hard.
Okay.
This is where it got hard. In the course of the conversation, something had occurred, and he had said something to the effect of, are we gonna have to contact them for help?
Okay.
But he said them. And the argument was, what's the them? I'm reading your thoughts. Like, what's the them? But they didn't say, even in their thoughts, what the them was. Now, the argument was that's not how thoughts work, right? Like, if you're thinking about saying them, you're probably thinking about what the them is. And so it would be there to be seen as a surface thought without having to probe deeper. But my argument was, my side of the story, my lore that I have for what's happening is this character has been through a lot. They have been through rigorous training,
Gotcha.
as well as having actually had been attacked psychically in the past. And so they have learned to train themselves to know where to put knowledge and where not to put knowledge.
Okay.
If I'm trying to not let something slip in my conversation with you, I'm going to do it with my words and with my thoughts.
Right. It's like an internal version of like thieves' camp. You know how to dance around certain information, or you know how not to think about information when you're saying certain things. Like,
yes,
I can say the word my boss without immediately thinking of
your boss's full
my
name.
direct, I don't have to think of an image of my boss. I can say my bosses, and that could be the management I've never met.
Mm-hmm.
It could be my entire organization. It could be the fact that I work for, like what level am I talking about, right? So I get your argument. I get there. So I'm assuming that the conversation goes down to rules as written. It comes down to raw versus right.
It was down to whether they felt it was justified that I asked them to probe to get that information. Because the spell has an ability, like you're reading your surface thoughts,
right?
And then the ability you can probe, but when you probe, whether you succeed or whether you fail, the person whose thoughts you're reading recognizes that somebody is reading their thoughts.
So they didn't want to take the risk, but they felt that if the conversation brought up referencing something, that reference would be available to them.
Correct.
Interesting. So that's where, and again, that's the line you were walking wasn't so much a this is how consistently I want the spell to work. It's more of a, in this situation, it benefits me to set up the story this way.
This is with who these characters are. It's not just that it benefits that this is the way the story's set up.
But it's how it is. Like that's how
makes
it
makes the most logical sense. And when you really think about it, like if just level 4s could run around reading the thoughts of like these level 20 people and just like taking whatever information out of it they wanted to, just being around them, listening to these conversations and being able to like, anytime they don't verbally say something, I can just know what it is. Like, I feel like that, again, we were talking the other day about what it means to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
If this is possible at such low levels.
And you can go one step further, like, and talk about how
crazy.
Well, and again, you can go one step further and talk about how, the different types of ways we've shown that the mind works. I mean, there are people who only think scene text. There are some people who can see pictures. Some people who can't see color in their head. There are some people who can't speak and have a narrator in their mind. They can think of plenty of things, but they cannot listen in their own head, right? Like some people just don't understand. So it's, and that's the thing, right? There might be people who can do all of those things. And maybe those are the types of minds who are juicier. Maybe you make those the people who are, fairly easy. They're the low level, the peasants, because their minds are just like an open can. But for someone who can only honestly think in images, when they're saying they, maybe you get an image of a building or a robe or a symbol. But if you were talking to someone and they can only think in text, if they say they, maybe they're only thinking about the sentence they're saying, right? Maybe their mind doesn't then lead to
it's literally a typewriter of exactly what they're saying,
instead of a series of webs where you can go they means them, means boss, means manager, means diplomat, means this, means archduke of, you know what I mean? Like that is not how the mind works either. Like if you think about it, when you say it's like, oh, what was wrong today, it's like, or it's like I had a big report, it's like, oh, who for? It's like, well, who for. My brain is not doing a 1,000 mile leap to the exact person and the exact email that I had a big report for. We both know that it's like, if I get a report, it's probably from my boss or someone higher. But when I say who, or when I say it's like, oh yeah, my bosses, my brain isn't specifically pinpointing like on my surface thoughts. Remember, because it does say surface thoughts.
Yes.
My brain neurologically is making the link all the way to the same email. Somewhere in my brain, it's remembering I had an email from that person. But when I'm talking to you, my surface thoughts aren't doing that giant leap. My surface thoughts are, oh, I'm tired because I had a report earlier and those reports were from my bosses. But that's as far as my surface thoughts go. So I'm of the camp where you were totally justified, because without even the justification that they have a trained mind, saying that that's not how thoughts work, well, how they assume that's not how thoughts work either. You know what I mean?
And there, yes, and there's, and I don't want to,
like, how many times have I like talked about Vixie, my wife?
Sure,
I've mentioned Vixie all the time, but that does not mean someone reading my surface thoughts is going to get her real name. Just because I say Vixie does not immediately mean my mind jumps to all of the personal information I know about her.
Sure.
And depending on when I'm talking about her, especially when we're here and we're talking about her in a D&D concept, the image that goes along with her name is her character. So if you were reading my surface thoughts and I said, oh yeah, my wife Vixie, and you were like, oh, I now know what his wife looks like. Yeah, you'd know what a fictional character that she made up that I interpreted. So you got to think, it's nowhere, like, you know what I mean? Like, so many layers of messed up that is to say, well, if they said them, I'd know exactly who it was. No, you wouldn't, because that's not how surface thoughts work. And if you were to, I don't train myself to do psyops, but when I think of Vixie, more often than not, if I'm using that term, it's because I'm thinking of her either video game wise or D&D wise. Otherwise, if, in real life, I just would refer by her real name, right? So of course, there's a big difference in how my mind works. So I could say Vixie all day long and you'll never know who I'm really talking about. You could probe my mind all day, but because I say that, I'm not trained to do it. It's just when I say that, all I think of is all the game stuff I know about her.
Right.
So you could probe all day long and guess what? All you're going to get is all the gaming streaming stuff about her.
And it's
yeah.
I totally agree.
I'm 100% behind what you did. Hats off. I need to just up the time to like a half hour. 15 minutes just isn't long enough. But you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I'm 100% behind what you're doing. I don't mind how you discussed it with them, but I do have that kind of an issue with having as a DM to explain yourself. Like, I don't like the idea that you even, not that it was wrong of you, but I get some people want to be rules lawyery, but again, sometimes we have to have a better language and a better communication between DM and players when it's like, we all have to be okay when it's being like, hey, like, why can't it just be okay? Why can't we normalize? Sometimes a DM can say, you're right, we should normalize that. Sometimes we should normalize the DM being able to say, I know it's a one-off. Like, I know it's a one-off, and just everyone accepts it, right? Like, just everyone moves on because it's like
Sure.
cinematic. What just let the DM be like, I know, just right now it makes sense. And then other times it's I have a reason. And sometimes you can provide an explanation, or sometimes you just have to trust. Like, like, you know me, I always follow it up. If I'm not going to tell you something, I always follow it up with the reason why. And usually that reason why is you either have to game for it, or it's because it's spoilers, right? Like, it would give you insight to other things.
Sure.
But that's the only thing, is like, I won't tell you, but this is how you can go get it.
I will say this. For me, for this particular situation, number one, this is this person's first time gaming with me. Like, and
oh, this is one of the, like, the brand new one.
this is the one who'd never gamed with me before.
Gotcha.
But it's I want to make sure that my players know, and like, it's demonstrated to them that I'm not here to, like, because I've been in situations where the DM just doesn't want you to be able to do your thing.
Yes.
They want to be the cool dude. They want to be able to, like, basically have the power and say what you can and can't do and this and that. And I don't want them to feel like they're not going to be able to use their character. It feels bad when you can't use your character, and when you feel like you just it's useless. Like, why do I even have these abilities if I'm not going to be able to actually do anything with them? Right? And like, I really want to make sure, like, I give these people the abilities and the skills and the things that they have so that they can feel like they're able to do the thing when the time comes. And so, like, I love that they went down this road and that he used it, but I really want him to go for it, to do the thing, right? So it's hard for me because sometimes it's like, I really want to make sure that they know that, like, we are on the same side. Like, I'm not trying to screw you over and make sure, like, but at the same time, I swear we've talked about it before, but it's like the mental immersion that both player and DM need to be able to have. Like, this is where it is for me. It's like, you guys are here, down here, and they're up here. And so if you're gonna read, like, it's gonna take some work and it's gonna take some risk on your side to get this. And I don't always know how to articulate that. Like, I can think of it now, but it
really just comes down to what I think, again, is like what we've talked about so many times on this podcast, is the player entitlement that 5th edition. Like, again, there's the bad type of player entitlement that I believe is like a problem, but then there's just the ingrained player entitlement that comes inherent with 5th edition. Again, the min-maxing, the everything from the get-go once you pick it, right? Like, there is the point to where it's a detriment if it's intentful, but there is just an ingrained aspect of D&D 5e was absolutely written to have no questions. Everyone was supposed to be able to say this is what it does. And again, in general, the community has accepted a raw without lore mindset, a rules as written over rules as intended, right? There's a much bigger, I think, voice, whether it's a vocal minority or it is the general mass majority. The fact is it appears as if rules as written is kind of the king of 5th edition. Whereas before, it was intended to be
played with,
what's the word I'm looking for? Interpret it.
Yes,
It was
yeah, yeah.
intended to be interpreted. It was intended to be played with and modified per gaming session. The mindset we have, as long as everyone's having fun, you're doing it right. But 5e was trying to be more universal, but with anything you have to be universal, you have to be kind of strict on the rules. And that's the broader sense. So I think that's what this is coming down to, is someone who is used to, not in a bad way, but basically being spoon-fed, this is what it does without question, so we all agree, if this is what you want, this is what you get. And when that's being challenged, it's not always an intent to fold, like, I don't get what I want, I'm mad. But 5e has geared players towards this mindset of, it's okay to challenge. If the rules say it, you get it.
And that was the other thing that I was talking about earlier, that I was realizing, is that I am playing with players that aren't from here. Like,
Yes.
this is a foreign land to them, and it's like and that's why, another reason why I wanted to make sure I was able to articulate this to them, is like, it's not here to screw you over. It's not here to like stop you. And I hope in the end that they felt like they were able to get something out of it, and it felt like something, because they ended up probing deeper, right? And it was a really close roll. Like, their bonus to this probe was fairly decent, and so like the roll ended up being like, and I rolled it out like in public, like to everybody, just because I know sometimes these things can be whatever. But I rolled a 7, right? And he needed a 7 to pass the check and to be able to detect who, or to keep him out of his mind, so
Gotcha.
that he couldn't actually read what was going on. And he rolled exactly the number that he needed to not. But I have a thing in my realm, and my version of DM points, or whatever you want to call it. I have these little tokens that I pass out for people to be able to cheat. Right?
Yeah.
And so, because it was so close, they were just like, can we spend a coin to flip this shit?
Fuck yeah, you can.
And so I was like, hell fucking yeah. Hell fucking, like, that's what this shit is for, right? So they did that, they brought it back, and they were able to get the probe in and get the information, right? And so, like, I think a lot of the times, like, people feel like, oh, DMs just don't want you to have the information, so they're not going to let you know what you want to know, right? They're just going to say it doesn't work because it doesn't work, right? But like, I didn't even want to keep it from them. I just wanted it to feel like you had to go get it, right? And
that's always good. I always encourage that. I
sure.
think it should always be something that you need to earn. You know, earn the story. Don't just participate.
Then it went down to, now they have to be able to not be recognized as the person, because as soon as they probed deeper, now that person knows someone's in their mind.
Yeah.
And they're out in this battlefield. They just killed off everything. So who the fuck's fucking around in my mind? And he was still like standing in the middle of the battlefield doing this, right? And so again, the idea behind his character is he's very, very new to these abilities, very new to discovering what he can do. So it's not like I'm just going to be like sitting here all calm, cool, and collected. You're like doing some like Jedi stuff. Like, you're at the very least trying to like focus on what it is that you're doing. So I wanted it to be like a little roll off, like to see if their perception could beat his like ability to not be recognized as the person, because they don't instantly know who it is, they just know somebody. So I had to roll a perception check, and that was the DC he had to beat on what I called it was a performance check, right? But I allowed him to use dexterity, because he was a rogue and he's likely going to be trying to do something slick in order to not be recognized as the person that was doing this. And so he passed his roll and he was not discovered. But like that whole moment of tension, I feel like, was hopefully what that experience was for, is to hope drive, like that was like, if you were to go watch that in a movie, like that would be like a point where like the violin strings are like all, like I I want to build those types of things, and I don't know if players are here for that or if they just want to smash against mechanics. You know what I mean? And so like that's the articulation, that's the epiphany of like, how do I actually let these people know that that's what this is, and it's not just mechanics, man, or whatever.
Yeah.
So
well, and again, you're in a unique situation because you've played primarily 5e, but you have a strong influence for wanting to have more of a story than having a heavy mechanics based system.
yeah,
So again, most people aren't used to that. Most people are used to, I don't want to say a bland story, but a poster board story that's kind of like the backdrop. Like the story is the backdrop. It's not the primary aspect.
yeah, it's not the focal point.
And I think that's where you and I are fundamentally different. We are so much more about the story than we are about that one cool time, that one fight that you did, that one move that required that one roll. Like,
Right.
I get all
it's
of
cool.
that.
Like,
it makes sense, but honestly, people try too hard, I think, to get those moments when it's way more badass when you talk down a god from like annihilating a whole town for insulting him just because you were like, wait a minute, I was told one time it's that whole thing of like, sometimes just playing the character results in a way more badass moment than meticulously waiting for that one trigger to do that one reaction that if I crit, I get all, like, you know what I mean?
What was that TV show that had the weird circle of water and it was all about Greek gods, but it was Chaos. Didn't somebody insult him and then he did that? He like destroyed like an entire town or something.
Basically, yeah. That's kind of that whole thing.
God bless America.
So yeah, so it's different mindsets of playing D&D and what you want to get out of it, you know?
It's very true. Very true.
All right. Well, excuse me. Well off into an hour into the stream, and we're finally getting to our topic.
Awesome. Nice little intro.
Hey, it happens, you know?
Indeed.
That's what the good people are here for. All right, so we are on our second episode of Image to Items. So at this point, we have done 2 items. We did the Blood Rose Blade and the Orobrax for last week.
Yes.
So those were some really interesting items. Well, Cosmic, what I was asking is, did they give a justification for why you were stopped, like in game? Like, was there any real justification or anything that made sense for you to be ordered to stand down? Or was it just kind of hand wavy as in, hey, I didn't want to be that mean, so I stopped you from doing it? That was my question. But yeah, so we have left 17 submissions.
Slay.
So
amazing.
We are going to roll a d20. If anybody in chat wants to choose a 20, 17, I need 3 numbers.
3 numbers?
3 numbers from chat. People in chat, 1 number each. If everyone wants to participate, of any 3, the first 3 people to put a number 1 through 20 in chat. If I roll that number, they get to pick.
Oh,
What? Like
which image?
Yeah.
Okay. Very nice.
All right. So Cosmic is 12. Hecate is 14. Anybody else want to give me a 3rd number? And if I roll it, you're going to give me a number 1 through 17, and that's what we're going to do. And if I don't, we're going to do the others.
Okay.
Because there are 17 other items. So anybody other numbers? Any other numbers? You can write in a number if you want. I mean, no one else is going to do so. I need 3 numbers filled.
There you go.
There we go.
Got your
Okay.
3rd number.
Nice. Perfect. I love that. So let's go. Number 14.
Wild.
Hecate.
Wild. Amazing.
Wow. All right.
Out
So
the
Hecate, choose a number between 1 and 17 and choose ascending or descending. So do you want me to count from the bottom up, or you want me to count from the top down, and I will pick whatever one you want.
So
Yeah,
close,
I
Cosmic.
can't believe that.
So
Like
close,
the
Cosmic.
fact that you both had.
But we have
this
another
close.
roll, Cosmic. It could still happen.
Yeah, we'll do it again on the next item. We'll do 2 items today. All right, Hecate, give me a number 1 through 17, and then you want me to count up or down, and then we will choose. That will be the item that we review or create. Let's go 7 going up. All right, here we go. So
up.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Getting it,
6,
Hecate.
7. This is just labeled I thing.
I think.
I labeled these as indescript as I could, just so there was no bias.
Oh, wild.
So this is I thing. Let me open this up in the chat. Let's go now. And here we go, everyone. This is the I thing that we are going to review or going to turn into an item. So I'm immediately I'm getting a portal. I'm feeling like a portal.
I was feeling that as well, but it also, for whatever reason, makes me very reminiscent of a mirror. And maybe that's just because
mirror like a portal
yes,
yeah.
But like that mirror could be a portal too.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking like something you hang on your wall and then you activate it and it turns into this. Hoi Lepo, what's going on? I was
What's
also
up,
thinking maybe like a replacement. Like if you were to like
a glass eye or something like that,
or because this is something that I feel like is missed, right? Remember, you know how like if you choose a tiefling, you can have a whole bunch of like cool aesthetics choices like that.
Sure.
Horn, tail, stuff like that. Oh my god, I don't know why I haven't added this to the I've had this idea for so long. Why isn't it in the DMG or ADMG? Add this to the ADMG.
All right.
I want to do the same options for a warlock.
Okay.
Like when you take on the deal, the pact, I wanted you to have the option to take on like
a feature of your patron.
Just call it like a pact scar, but it's not necessarily a scar. It's
Sure,
not
sure,
necessarily to be like physical scar, but call it a pact scar. And the idea is it could be like a jewelry. Maybe it's like an earring it gives you, right? It's just an earring. Like if you see that earring, you know that you follow it. Or maybe it's a tattoo. Maybe it burns its symbol into your chest.
Okay.
Maybe it is a scar. Maybe it actually takes it from your flesh, and you have to choose where to. Maybe it's one of think about Game of Thrones. Like Arya Stark had to give up her sight for a while, right? To follow, what was it, like the faceless one or whatever.
I think so.
But yeah, so things like that. Like imagine the idea that you have the Warlock Pact require you to imagine it could be something as you roll on a table and you have to give up a finger, like Assassin's Creed.
Yeah,
You're just gonna roll without a finger from now on, right? Just these like little unique, like the Undying. Imagine that you have to stab yourself in the heart, but you still live and you're not really undead. But then you have a scar on your chest showing that you proved that you did it.
Right.
Just like little things. So I've always wanted to do that with like warlocks, is like give them kind of like, because I think of the idea that this gives me is CL Phantom Hive from Black Butler. Remember, because when he wears the patch, because the symbol when you in the lore of Black Butler is when you make the deal with the demon, he has to brand you, and the more obvious the brand, the stronger the link between you two. So most people would hide it, and that would kind of sever the link. But CL chose to put it on his eye, like the most obvious, right? Which is why he wears a patch.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why when he's able to activate it, he and the demon have the most team up option, and they have the biggest link.
Okay.
So that's what I look at this, and I'm like, imagine this is the warlock's eye after making a pact. You know what I mean?
That's kind of crazy. I like that idea.
Because that's what I'm just
really
thinking of.
Like that idea.
He opens his eye and that's what it looks like. He's just like,
that is crazy.
So yeah, so just again, we need to add that to the ADMG as like a pack scar. And again, it doesn't have to be a scar as in like
but that's I like that name. Like, but just the symbology of like the symbol of,
you have to. And again, I love the idea of like if it's like an earring, it can't be removed.
No,
so
that goes back to what we talked about the other day. What happens if you break your pact?
That's why I kind of like.
Would it go away?
But I love it. Like if it's a tattoo, I would love it to like actually hurt you and like do damage, like it burns away, so
Like
it leaves like a
withers
scar,
okay.
like a burn scar, so it's no longer a tattoo, but it literally looks like kind of like a brand, like you've been branded like a heretic, or like like the earring would like fall out or something like that.
Sure.
But yeah, I would definitely think like when you break it, that like tarnishes somehow.
Got you.
But yeah, fascinating. I have the outsider. I see like an energy source. Okay. A very rare type of battery.
Okay, interesting. Maybe like the core of something.
Yeah. Oh, you could talk about like if you want to talk about what if this is like a lich's phylactery?
Okay.
Like this.
That would be really cool looking.
Like, arcane focus. Maybe a frozen explosion. Oh man, that gives me Doctor Who vibes, obviously. Man, so here's an idea.
Frozen explosion is a very cool idea.
Oh, okay. I got an idea for this one. What if this is a uber powerful artificer type of grenade, where they took an explosion you normally couldn't contain, or something that you normally couldn't like actually do,
Right.
contained it in a handheld. So when this goes off, it's just bigger than what this could possibly do as a normal this size.
Oh, wild.
So I'm wondering like with that size, what would this look like? But then again, I'm also looking at that also looks like a lightning bolt. So imagine if like an artificer made grenades that had spells inside of them, and this is just what they look like. So like you pulled it out, and whatever the spell
that would be really cool.
So one just looks like a giant flame, like a fireball constantly trying to blow up. This one would be like an electric, like like a electric orb or something.
Okay.
This one could actually be a prismatic orb.
Okay. Yes. What is that other one?
So like this is like prismatic orb grenade. Where can you imagine like an art? So imagine like having an artificer wizard that could create grenades based off the spells they knew.
That would be baller as hell.
That's kind of what I'm thinking here.
As hell.
Phylactery of a Dracolich. Yeah.
Chromatic orb.
Cosmic says thinking more of a lens. You could cast spells out of the lens, so it between you and the target maintains concentration for you. Interesting. I could definitely see this as like if you wanted to make it a magic item, I would see this thing could give you clairvoyance. Like you could look through it, and it would basically like
cool.
be casting clairvoyance
that would be very
for
cool.
you.
Why am I also feeling like this could kind of be like Iron Man's little chess piece?
Oh yeah, just like an energy source,
something that like is embedded in you for some reason. Maybe
I asked Sauron's cousin.
That's actually kind of
cool. I mean, thinking about the Eye of Sauron kind of concept. What if this was not necessarily like the eye of a deity, but what if an eye of a great one or an ancient one? Like this is all that's left of like some ancient being.
I like that.
Like maybe you can tap it for information. Maybe it acts like an oracle.
Oh, that would be very cool.
So like, maybe either whether it's an item that you could carry around or an item you could adventure to.
It's like in a fixed location or something like that.
Yeah, but it's like it's like the eye of just a creature that just knows information beyond our comprehension. So it acts basically as an oracle that'll just answer one question. Does
that remind me of
the Oracle from Phase? Yeah. I like it. Okay, so we have a couple different ideas. So I definitely feel like most of the ideas were coming to the conclusion that it seems like it's something that's contained.
Okay.
Like, you know what I mean? Like we're definitely I think we're getting the vibe that this is like somewhat of a containment.
There's something in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
The question is do we want to make this, I guess, kind of like the whole process, do we feel better making this a party centric, plot centric, or environmental centric? As in the ideas would be party centric, something that the party would adventure to obtain, to be able to utilize ongoing, like a magical item.
They would be able to keep it with them. Okay.
Plot centric being like, this is what you're trying to stop someone from obtaining, or you need to obtain this to win the game. Like it'll hurt the BBEG, whatever. And then environmental centric would be like an oracle, something you can go and interact with, but it doesn't change your actual. You don't need it for completing your plot line and your quest,
But it is it just
but you're also not going to take it with you. It's a kind of like a portal. Like you could do it as a portal, you could do it as like the oracle. Those are kind of like environmental things that it's cool to have if you run into it. Like the deck of many things is, in my opinion, an environmental magical item.
Sure.
It is something you run into. You can adventure for it. You can interact with it.
You can theoretically carry it around with you for a little bit.
Yeah, but it's not meant for that. It's not like it's an item you're like dishing out all the time, right? It's kind of a touch it and go. But whereas a plus sword, a sword plus one, that's a party-centric item. That is an item they want to keep, they want to use. And then there are ones where it's like, hey, you need this because this will, this will, get you to be able to hurt the BBEG. Like this item specifically is the only thing that can hurt it.
Right.
So those are the 3 categories I tend to look at when I want to like create something.
No, I like that
because it tells you how much interaction the party can expect to happen. And and where the balancing is, right? If this is an environmental thing, it can be as powerful as we want it to be. If it's a plot-centric item, like you want to make sure that it really does something very unique in situation.
Right.
And if it's a party-centric item, you just want to make sure that it's balanced enough to want to use, but not so much that the overuse of it basically outshines you don't want someone taking this and not using their regular weapon. You don't want someone taking this and not using their feats, right? You don't want this to outshine the player. You just want this to give them something more.
Yeah.
Like a box of Pandora type artifact, maybe.
Ooh. Interesting.
Question for Kage. What's your favorite type of spellcasting focus?
I would have to say the staff. Orbs are cool. Books are also very cool. Wands can do some cool things, but the staff, its versatility, like no matter what type of caster I am, whether I'm an artificer, whether I'm a druid, whether I'm a wizard, it doesn't matter. Having the staff is just cool. And shillelagh, because shillelagh, man. Like,
yeah.
I'm still a caster, man.
So I really can't get over just how much of like prismatic orb vibe this gives me.
Okay.
So I'm kind of thinking maybe just doing a party-centric item here.
Party-centric? Okay.
So something that they could venture to get. Because I'm looking at chromatic, not prismatic, chromatic orb.
Yes.
So it is a 4-inch diameter. So you're thinking like that big. It's a, like it's a hand or a soft. It's like about a softball, maybe a little bit bigger than a softball.
Okay.
But it's a 4-inch diameter sphere of energy that you create that you can see within range. I've always usually heard when it's usually described more, it's like multicolored.
Yes.
So that's what I look at this.
Yeah,
and I'm like, that is. But you choose acid, cold, fire, lightning, poison, or thunder for the type of damage. You make a ranged spell attack, and if the attack hits, the creature takes 3d8, right? So that's a first level spell. Pretty basic and boring.
Yeah, first level spell, yeah.
So what I'm thinking is take this, because this does look like a contained prismatic orb, chromatic orb. And what I kind of like the idea of is like a super powerful, like, because I feel like so often we don't get, we think of the idea of, I think D&D treats the mindset of jack of all trades and master of none a little bit too liberally, in the sense that I don't think multi-classes are given enough credit.
Okay.
In the sense that every great wizard has to be a wizard only, right? Like, imagine a great cool magical item being made by a wizard artificer multi-class.
Oh,
but that
right.
We don't really hear about the great names are usually level 20s, which means you have to be solo. But that doesn't necessarily mean your creativity could make a name for you. So I'm thinking like a level 20 equal 10 wizard artificer. Learned all about magic, but then learned to be able to like contain it, right? And I'm thinking with this, like, I want them to have created this item.
This is a still picture, but I want you to look at the colors and see how they're layered all the way out.
Yeah.
I am imagining, especially with this idea of chromatic orb, that center thing is cycling through all those colors, and those colors
Oh
are
yeah,
in a
I think this entire thing
cycle
is,
of colors. And so as a
agree with
result of that, yes, that could look like lightning now, but in a second it could look like fire.
Oh no,
In
no,
a second
that's the
and
idea.
so,
Yeah, no, that's
like,
the idea. So here's what I'm thinking for the item, right? Because again, I feel like multi-classes aren't given enough credit in terms of like what they could do. So I'm thinking a wizard artificer created this, and what it does is it would be pretty powerful. So this is definitely not a low level item, but actually it could be. Maybe it could be. What it would do is allow, whether this is a necklace or an orb you can hold, maybe it's a spellcasting focus. Spellcasting focus makes sense, like a really high powered one, maybe a +1 to make it magical. But I like the idea that, because we've talked about doing this before, when you hold this as a spellcaster, you can just, when you cast spells through this, you may choose acid, cold, fire, lightning, poison, or thunder as your damage. Just period. Just, you're holding this thing. So a wizard captured chromatic orb and said, hey, you hold this, and any spell you cast, your choice of the damage type. That's all it is. All it does is it's just an arcane focus that when you cast through it, any damage type you want. Not addition to, just full on change. Imagine the fun you could have with that.
Is it all damage or just one of those types of damage?
You can change it to one of these. So if you're going to cast Fireball, you can change it to acid damage.
If I
only.
have a spell that does bludgeoning damage, can I change it to one of those? That's what I mean. Is it all damage? Is it all damage?
So that's a weird. Okay, so I think yes, in the sense that the only reason that wouldn't make sense is like if you are summoning a rock and throwing it at their face, the rock doesn't become a fireball. But for the most part, bludgeoning damage would usually come from something like force, which is just another type of damage.
Magic Stone. Magic Stone is a cantrip. I touch 3 rocks that are in my pocket, and I make them magical, and I can throw them 60 feet, and it'll do damage according to my intelligence modifier.
That's the imbued rocks doing the damage, not a spell. I don't know how to define that difference. But you know what I'm saying is,
I think
it has to be the spell itself doing damage, not like I imbue your sword and now your sword does fire
What about
damage.
theoretically Meteor Swarm? Because I'm pretty sure that has bludgeoning damage in it as well. Or any of the Earth Tremor spells.
So maybe it would be more, okay, so maybe it's not magical damaging. Maybe it would have to be you can change any elemental damage into one of these. So,
okay.
Because again, some of the spells just don't make any sense. Like you can't really turn a earthquake into fire damage. You know what I mean? Like
unless you got flames randomly coming out. But then how are you gonna change it to lightning damage? How are you gonna change it to all the other things?
I'm more comfortable just saying that when casting a spell, an elemental spell, you may change it to any of these damage types.
What about necrotic damage? Radiant damage.
Yeah, I'd let those be on here because you can't change to them, you can only change from them. So I'm okay going away from something that's like a magical, especially if you can't go to it, right? Because this is kind of honing you in on
it is
what
one of
chromatic
these
orb can do.
Yes.
So I mean, unless you wanted to go so far in saying that you can switch any of these types with another one of these types.
That was my original question, is like, is it every other type or is it any?
I was trying to just say I wasn't trying to be that complicated, but it needs to be. But the idea was just, if I'm casting a spell that's going to do, I guess, a magical or elemental type of damage.
Psychic damage?
No, because again, that does feel like it kind of needs to be its own. Like, how do you change what's happening in the head to physical fire?
Yeah, that's that. So
okay, so how about this?
It's getting closer to feeling like
as an arcane focus, so basically the chromatic focus is what we can call it.
Okay.
And basically, when using this when the item as a magical focus, you may turn any of the following damage types into another on this list. And then you just list these out. So you can turn, anytime you are going to do a spell of acid, cold, lightning, fire, poison, or thunder, you can change it to any of the other types on that list.
Okay.
So that's how it would just read, is And as long as you're using this, any of these damage types you would deal from a spell can be another type. So fireball can be lightning bolt. Works the same, you're just changing the damage type. You're not doing a chain lightning bullshit. It's just lightning into
cold ball.
Yeah, it could be a cold ball. It could be a poison ball. It could be an acid ball. So yes, that's what I think this looks like, because it does kind of seem pretty legit.
I like that a lot, and it's simple.
It's so simple.
It's so
and
simple,
honestly,
and it's so.
You could give that to a level 3.
Yeah, that wouldn't be the end of the world.
It's just changing damage type. It's not adding. It's not making it more powerful. And honestly, that's something that, while it may not be the best spell focus, I'd hold on to that.
Heck yeah.
Even if I'm not using it all the time, I'll still pull it out every now and again. Because I didn't have 2 spell focuses at that point. I'd have like my main spell focus be like, oh, this thing doesn't work. Hold on, pull that out. Electrocute damage. There we go.
How many fighters have multiple weapons, right?
Oh, yeah.
You know, like, it's totally cool to have a couple foci, especially with one that does this. That's cool shit.
Yeah, I like that. So Ice Storm is both cold and bludgeoning. Yeah. So, all right, take it easy, Hecate. Thank you for showing up. Appreciate you. So yeah, so how are we with that name too? The chromatic focus.
I like that. I like that a lot.
So it's called the chromatic focus. It was made by a wizard artificer. I actually might put this in high point. Like this one, I might, because I think this one is literally so universal. There's no addition that would, I think, make this feel so dangerous that you couldn't give it to at bare minimum a level 8, or at, you know, like I don't think anybody would argue at a level 8 or later.
Shoot, I mean,
I could make the argument for a level 3.
Sure.
I could make the argument for someone getting this like as their backstory, but I could understand like 4th edition or even 3rd edition maybe needing this to be pushed out a few levels.
Sure.
So the chromatic focus, turn any spell of the one of the below damage types could be turned into any other of these damage types. And I don't think there should be a limit. I think it just should be, because again, it's not like it's a using magic. It's almost like when you're casting it through it, you're putting fire into it, and then lightning comes out. But the next,
what you call it, the little triangle thing, prism.
Yeah,
what they called? Yeah, prism. It's like a little prism.
Exactly.
It's
like
magic
you're
prism.
You're putting fire into it, and lightning comes out. Well, eventually you're gonna put lightning into it, and fire comes out. Someday.
I just imagine like real quick. Does it require attunement?
No, because it was made by a mortal, and especially not a level 20. Like he was only a level 10 each. So I'll even go so far as to say that because he's not a max level wizard or artificer, he wouldn't be able to make an attunement level item. And I think that this is low tech enough that it could even be considered rare, not legendary.
Okay.
Because realistically,
I agree.
Because again, thinking about a wizard artificer,
I wouldn't even think it's not even very rare.
Like you could probably he probably made like a half a dozen of these. Not like he's not making hundreds, but I could easily believe that this is a set of 3. Like there's like maybe 3 of these out there. And hell, maybe we could do that eventually, where maybe we'll name this guy, because he's gonna go in high point, so I gotta name him soon.
Sure.
Maybe we'll name him. We'll name it after him. Maybe it'll be such and such as chromatic focus, and maybe we'll make a couple others, and maybe there'll be a whole set, because I like the idea of having like 3 of these like in the world, because again, artificers tinker, they have like slightly different versions of it, and then I wouldn't mind having like a nice little set of his, kind of like Mordekainen has a set of stuff. I wouldn't mind just a couple little tinkered items from him or her. I have to think about who the NPC is.
I'm here for that.
Yeah. All right. I will get back to you on who this NPC is. Esteban. Who is Esteban? Maybe I'll use that name, Esteban. Sebastian. All right. Are we happy with that?
I'm happy with that.
Super simple.
Let me finish writing this down, but I love it. Now, I know keep again. Where are you?
We're gonna call
Where's the last one?
So
You're there you are. Live
focus. Success. Wolfgang chromatic focus. Harmut chromatic focus.
What am I doing? I'm tripping. I need to be over here.
Astaban Wolfgang.
Um,
Sounds like a badass name. Astaban Wolfgang.
it does. I forgot that I was taking notes in the wrong freaking place. Terrible.
Gasp.
Shame. Where's duplicate? So, I remember last time we had a little list that we were going off of, and I just want to make sure I have everything in here for it. This is first on the list was what is it, and I would say this counts as an item.
Yeah, or a focus. It's a
Sure.
arcane
Item.
focus, I guess. Yeah, item. I guess that, yeah, the item would be, the category would be item because it's not a weapon.
Got you. And then it's what is it made of? And I would say it's probably contained in like something. It could be like glass or whatever, but like
we can say I mean yeah, we could say an art like an artificer's container, like an art, and we can always, you know, like come up with what that means later. Sure. But like, you know, whatever artificers normally like, you know, create, like, I mean, artificer trinket.
Okay.
You know, I would say, well, I mean, even, you know, again, looking at it, I would say more likely it's maybe some exotic metal. It's not quite silver or gold or anything. So we could just say that it's like, you know, an exotic type of metal that contains the magic.
I like that.
Ooh, Harmony means hard courage. All right, and
then we have what/who made it, what level of craft, and we decided that it's going to be a half artificer, half wizard, level 20 mortal.
Yeah. And we'll just call it rare. I don't even think it needs to be very rare. I think we just call that rare. Oh, it's your second name. Nice.
Next one is what is its lore? How did it drop into the game? We just talked about that. He was tinkering around. He's got a couple sets, you know, he's made some experiments. He's done some other things.
I like the idea of like his whole thing is not to create, like, I like the idea of the character that I'm going to create for High Point is it's not about the end result item. Like, it wasn't about creating an item that could do this. It wasn't about, it wasn't even about containing spells. Because I mean, that's basically what a scroll is.
Sure.
But I like this idea of they took the idea of a scroll is just a spell waiting in the ether, right? It's just, we see words on a page. But what an artificer sees in a scroll is, imagine, like, I like to imagine, like, you know, think about Lego. Think about a complete Lego set when it's completed. You see the whole completion, right? That's the spell, is when it's completed. What a scroll is the instructions, right? That's what we see.
Pretty much.
What I envision an artificer sees is that scroll, but they see the inside the scroll. Like you unravel the scroll, all you see is the instructions.
Sure.
They unravel the scroll, and to them, with the scroll is also all of the pieces.
Right.
And that's where they're like, oh, I see how this is all going together. So that's how I kind of imagine this is it's not, I want to contain spells. It's more of a, we already do this. So instead of containing a spell to be used later, it's been done. Who fucking cares, right? There's wands of fucking fireball. He's bored with that. But what he wants to know is if there are things that can be powered by magic, and there are things that can store magic for later use, what's in the middle? What is powered by magic that would otherwise be done for later use? Like, it's one thing to have a magical item powered by magic.
Sure.
And then it's another to have magic come out of an item. He wanted to know, if I put a certain type of magic in an item, what is the end product? What if so instead of putting magic as power, like instead of just putting raw energy, what if I put a spell as the energy? That's the
Right.
lore. Does that make more sense?
Yeah.
That's the lore I'm going with. He's not just infusing items with magic to make them magical, and he's not just putting a spell in to have it come out later. He wants to put a spell in the item and use that spell as the battery.
Interesting.
And that's where I like the idea of that's where this came out. He wants to know, what would chromatic orb do as a battery? Like if I put that in an item and said, item, be magical, and this is your source, and then I imbued it with enough to be like replenishing itself, what would that look like? Like, because I imagine as a wizard, you know how a spell casts to like pull in energy. Imagine he was able to like inscribe it to where the orb itself kind of does that like naturally, so where it's always like
Interesting.
just barely like magical. But the idea is that that's why when you use it, this is what happens, because what does chromatic orb do? It finds a element and then does damage. But if it can't do that damage and you give it energy that it can't hold inside this little thing, what's it going to do? It's going to try to release it. But chromatic orb can be anything at once, and it hasn't decided yet. So that's why, like, I'm looking at the lore of that's why this item great. He didn't think about
it's
it.
interesting, like the idea of energy cannot be created nor destroyed, right?
Just altered,
and
yeah.
so like the idea of when I kind of look at it like kind of going back to what I was talking about, like a prism, like this thing has become like this little eyelet almost. And so like when I put magic into it, or i.e. through it, right, it mixes in with the cyclic energy that's in there. And because what's coming out, what I've created, the spell that I've cast is only the spell that it casts. So it can only ever be the spell that it casts.
Right.
But as it goes through this prism, it has the ability to cycle through and come out the other side with one of the other. And I just love this like thought process of like how you can go about like, I don't know. I have this weird idea of it's almost like a revolver, like you're like spinning a revolver,
Exactly,
right?
yeah. But
And you're just like coming out.
You could, if you wanted to as a DM, you could just make it random. So
Sure,
every time you
sure,
use
sure.
it, you could roll a d6, and that's what it does. I like the idea of choosing, but you're right. Like that, and again, I like the idea that,
And maybe
to
those
me-
are some of his variations that are just out there in the world, and be like, hey, I know what that does. I can choose, and then you get it, and you.
and maybe
You
that's
could
it.
only-
Maybe he made it through. Maybe he made the first one and it was random. He's like, oh, that's cool. Well, maybe I'll make a second one because that could be a fun party trick. And then the second one, it did this, and it's like, oh, what the hell? And then maybe the third one, whenever you cast a spell of one of these damage types, it increases by 3d6. So what if one increases the damage as if you were casting chromatic orb on top of the spell? One lets you choose the new element, and another one, it's just a random element. Every spell you choose comes out as a random element. So, like,
I want a legendary one where it does all of them.
well, and that's what I'm saying. It's like I like the idea.
That would be
like,
wild.
with this particular one. Because sometimes it's nice to have things made with intent. Sometimes it's nice to just be like, that kind of just sounds like it just happened by accident. And this sounds better to just, he doesn't know what he was creating.
He's just fucking around.
And this was like, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't sound like this is
Like
what it
that's
was
lightweight.
expected.
Why you would be an artificer and a wizard? It's because you like fucking around.
Exactly.
Like you just out here want to like fuck with shit and like see what happens.
So that's our lore. This,
not mad
this
about
was I wanted to know what chromatic orb would do as a empowering item. And even if you want to write a little bit, no, the other two. I don't even mind saying that those are all what all three are. And we might be able to discuss if he went one step further and said, well, can I marry it all? But
Right.
I think that would be the three that I would want in the set. He tried to recreate it. And again, because these things aren't made with design, every time he did it, it had a slightly different outcome. And I kind of like that. Oh, well, and you were talking about a legendary item. What if that's just the set? What if when you have all three together, what if they harmonize and you are able to stack it? What if that's the weird key is they just stack? So if you're holding two of them and you cast a spell, if they touch, they basically act as one. If they all three touch, they basically act as one.
What
There's
if imagine because it does kind of look like it's flat. Imagine if they had some sort of weird
Like lenses.
apparatus
So instead
that they
of doing-
actually look like
so it's not
little
an
sliding
orb.
lenses.
Well, they're not an orb. So what if you just stack the lenses? So every time you cast it through, when it went through, it got its imbuement.
Yeah.
So it goes to the first
Or-
one, changes damage, goes to the second one, increases damage, and then goes to the third. So the way that you stack it is you put the random one first, then it gets the increase in damage, and then it comes out the one you get to choose, right?
Wild. That would be so sick. That would be so sick. Okay, so
okay. I like this lore. So so we can talk about the other ones later, unless you just want to put like a little asterisk.
No, let me just real quick. What are the three you said you get to choose?
So this one you can choose.
You could choose. And
another one is random.
Random.
And then the other one is
added damage.
It increases the damage by the normal the set amount.
By chromatic orb amount.
Yeah, by the amount of chromatic orb. I like that. It makes sense that the first one he made randomly changed it, tried to recreate that one, honed a little bit, and was able to like choose. You could choose it. And then I kind of like the third one. It was just a fuck up. Try to recreate it to see if he could actually make another like actually make some to sell. And then the third one completely fucked up, and he was like, maybe this is not the right path I should take. Or that he just got bored and went to a different project. But I like that. That's the progress. The first one was random. The second one he finally refined to be able to control, and then he tried to do that again.
So I like this. This is a 3-part item.
Yeah.
This is a 3-part item that has 3 pieces, and they could be found separately in your world or whatever the case may be. But when brought together, they allow the caster to increase damage and come out with all damage.
No, it's not a 3-piece set. So the first one was the prototype.
Which one?
The randomized.
The random one. Okay.
That's the prototype. He tried to make the second one, and it worked. So then he wanted to make it again. He wanted to make another piece, and that one fucked up, and that one increased the damage. So then he decided, well, wait a second. I have one lens that isn't worth it, so he chucked it, and that's somehow got lost. Now that's in the world, right? So that's probably the one that the random one's probably the one that the players will actually find randomly, right? Like that's the one you're most likely going to find, is the one that changes it to a random. That sounds like a lot more fun. But the other two he decided are lenses, right? These are lenses to his pair of goggles, because he's a wizard.
His goggles are his focus?
Goggles are his focus. So
it is an artificer. That's
so it's not a 3-piece set, it's a 2-piece set. You find the broken lens first, realize there's an improved one, and then when you realize you find that improved one, you realize it fits to a pair of goggles. Then you realize, wait a minute, this pair of goggles is missing a lens, and it's not the broken lens.
Well, imagine you just find it in the goggles.
But because I'm thinking like the broken lens isn't going to fit the goggles at all. Like it's not actually a lens. The lens was created after the fact. So you find out there's a pair of goggles, and this lens that you get to choose your type, that fits in the goggles, but you're like, where's the other lens? So you find out there's another lens. The other lens is adding the fucking damage. So when you bring them both together and you wear the goggles with both lenses, you get both effects. That's your legendary item, is the goggles. You get to choose your damage type and increase it by the 3d8. Just those are the two things you get if you have all of it together. But only if you have the goggles. So you can have both lenses and use them individually, but only when they're installed and worn as the goggles do you get to use them simultaneously. This is what I'm going with.
Interesting.
This exists in the high point now.
Okay.
I have to create. I'm probably gonna spend all weekend running through the. Well, because now I have to. I have to do the.
It's birth event. It's
what's it called? The
aggregation, something like that.
No, the thing that happens on top of the water, like the
waves,
the
ripples.
Effect.
Yeah, ripple.
So that's what I have to do. Now that this happens, now I have to go from this creation. Now I have to ripple out and figure out past, future, and present aspects of this character. So I will come up with a name probably by next stream, and have it much bigger. But I love this. I love the fact that these are, because again, it's kind of like Dov's ring. That was a failed prototype.
Yes.
Of an item that actually exists now. Right, and that's more prevalent. And I kind of like that. Like you can find this thing that leads you to be able to find an upgraded version that then leads you to find an, oh my god, this is a dope ass magic focus, right? And again, how many times do you make artificers like, steampunky with like the goggles, right? Why wouldn't you have, because and you were talking about like how you were saying like the idea of like you could change the lenses. So imagine when you find the goggles, right? You find the one lens and you're like, oh, it's missing a lens. You find the other lens. I'm like, oh, this is really cool. Then you realize, wait a minute, this other lens has like a bar that comes out. And then you find out that this one can also have a bar that comes out. And that bar is meant to hold other lenses. You know how like you have the people
Yeah.
who have the magnifiers?
Yeah.
So they have like multiple lenses here and you're just like flicking one at a time down. Imagine that is actually the real lenses, has like 3 lenses on each side, and you can, whichever ones are down are the ones you're using. So what if that's his like ultimate item, is he was just creating the ultimate pair of goggles to just make anything. He wanted to imbue something, boom, this lens helps him see the magic that's inside of it. This lens helps him put magic in it. This lens helps him do more powerful, like imagine every time he's tinkering stuff, he's just like click, 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 click. He's just changing lenses to change how he deals with magic.
That would be wild.
That's it. That's what's that's what this is I'm gonna make the goggles and I'm gonna decide like all 6 lenses. This is it. This is just one of 6 lenses in the entire set of these goggles. And it's all gonna stem from finding the one broken
if
lens.
they are now lenses, are we still calling it the chromatic focus?
It is, yeah, because they're all gonna be their own individual focus. Right? Like each lens is in and of itself a focus. Only when installed onto the goggles will it be able to add onto each other. So even if you held 2 lenses, they do not interact, and there's nothing you can do to use them at the same time. Only when installed in the Wizard Artificer's goggles sets do they interact, because the goggles themselves will be a magical item, and their ability is when things are installed, it connects them. Like that's the only magical ability the goggles have, is it connects the lenses as long as they have this ring thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's gonna be basically just this whole Artificer build. But I'm gonna make lenses, so it's like he has like 2 chromatic orb lenses, and he'll have like 2 other type of spell lenses, and he'll have 2 based on a different spell. So it's like,
sure.
I like that idea of. This is so fucking cool. I love this. Oh my god, I did not expect a full-on like add-in to High Point for this. That's fucking cool though. I hope you appreciate that. That is some crazy High Point. So because again, this is what happens. I will do this
in person,
and now I have to just go back in time and figure out, because you know there's plenty of holes that this will be able to fill now. Now that I have this person, I'm like, how many things that I want to be able to create, and I'm like, I didn't have an author or a builder. Now I do. All those weird little things, it's basically gonna come from this build, this NPC. So
I fucking love it, man.
Cool. You got all that written down for me? Because
I've got, yes.
Sweet. I'm probably not gonna forget now that I know what's going in High Point, but man, that's exciting. All right, that is and we can actually just call that the chromatic focus lens if we want to.
Okay.
To specifically call out that that's what it looks like, is like an individual lens. Or we can call it the chromatic lens and then just call it an arcane focus.
Okay.
How about that? Just the chromatic lens.
I like that.
Because yeah, well, I mean, I'll have to figure out what all the other names are and all of that. But yeah, we'll deal with that when I create them all.
Okay.
And then maybe I'll submit the entire set as a review for chat to review me.
Very nice.
We do have to figure out how we can do that someday, where
we
can like maybe
voting or something like that.
Either a voting system, or maybe I'll have like a list of questions or something to where like we'll come on, I'll read through it, and then I'll have a way for chat to be able to like. Well, I guess chat could just post their questions, but yeah, we'll have to have like a way for chat to be able to vet their ideas on whether or not it works. You know what I mean? Do a chat reviews my stuff. Kind of thing. We did that once with one of my items, but
yeah, I think we've seen it.
All right, well, that one's done. Let's do one more. All right, chat. We now have 16 items, so I need 4 numbers in chat.
They're doing new numbers?
Yep, I need 4 new numbers in chat right now. If I roll your number, you will get to choose between 1 and 16 if I count from the top or the bottom. And if I roll any other number, that's the item that we're going to review. So 4 numbers in chat, 1 through 16, go. When I get 4 numbers, I will roll. And you can fill in if chat does not.
Of course.
Hecate's not here, so Hecate's not going to be able to win this time.
Oh, sadness.
I don't think I have a roll bot, unfortunately. I don't think you can roll in Twitch chat.
Is there no roll button for Twitch?
I don't know. No? No. No roll commands that I can see. I will have to maybe program that. All right. No numbers from chat, huh? I'm just gonna have to pick the numbers myself and just re-roll if I feel like it. Hopefully, I'll just roll under a 16.
Wait, Lep is trying to roll for us too.
Yeah, unfortunately, I just don't think there's any roll commands that are gonna work. So
Wild. Here. You gotta have a 3.
all right. Well, 3 will be. I guess I can choose if it's gonna be a 3 because I already know what item I'd want to do.
Okay.
So if I roll a 3, I will choose.
Let me put in a 9.
Okay. 3 for me, 9 for Kage. Need 2 more numbers, chat. Anybody else in there? No, we're just gonna roll and see what happens.
Just to see what happens. And then if it's you could do if it crits either way.
Not really much for a crit option. All right, well, we're just gonna see what happens because chat's not participating. A 5. That's nobody's
5.
number anyway. Should we go from top to bottom? Last time we counted from the bottom, so should I count from the top this time?
Yeah, let's count from the top.
All right, 1, 2, 3, 4. Ooh, it's a shame Soul's not here.
Oh,
Because I was actually kind of really hoping for this one. Not tonight, but at some point. And I think Soul was too.
oh, I think I know which one it is now.
All I have this labeled is, and I remember the image already, but all I have this labeled is bow sword.
Wild.
So
Wild,
this is
wild.
what we are dealing with is, from what I can tell, like this piece here is obviously this little stabby piece here. So what happens is these blades fold down and become the arms of the bow.
Yes.
Now, the problem with that is A, it doesn't work as a normal draw bow because the blades wouldn't bend.
Sure.
So the only thing I can think of is that this is going to be some sort of like hand crossbow.
Or because in that second picture, I don't actually see a string there.
That's why I was thinking like the mechanism is in here where you like hold it and
If yes, it could be a crossbow.
like the mechanisms are all inside here. Is the only thing I could think of when I first saw it. Right?
I was honestly thinking it was like a magical string.
Oh,
Like the string was literally like apparated there when you turned it this direction, and so the blades don't need to bend. It's just the string stretching.
So the weird thing is, like, we look back here, right? That's a very weird type of hit, for sure, right?
I wish I could see the other side of it to see what was there.
And I really want to know what this like cross guard is, but I also look at it too, and I can't tell if that's supposed to be like, you know what I mean? It kind of looks like that's where you're supposed to draw your fingers.
Yeah.
And then I'm not really sure what this is.
It looks.
But it looks like that's
it looks
charger.
depth. Yeah.
It looks like this is what you pull back because it looks like inside there.
It does
right?
look like a crossbow.
So it looks like you're like charging this back into here and then through here. But either something shoots out or you charge this back and then slam this forward and this thing shoots out.
Yeah.
And then at that point, I don't know what you really have other than like, I mean, you could have just been swinging, hold it, your things come out.
Maybe there's like a rope attached to it and you can actually like reel people in or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting. Make it a ballista. And this sword version is just how it gets transported. Interesting. So giant side. So this is just like
interesting.
Just a very giant ballista. Okay. I'm trying to think here. Like, yeah, the blades folding down don't do much for us, right? And so, I mean, you could still get some slashing, kind of like a what is that? The batleth. And kind of like, but I mean, again, you'd have to this side we know is sharp on the inside, and then we know the outside could possibly also be sharp when it's bent. So yeah, it's a very weird connection. It's like, honestly, what this looks like out of, in real life, out of D&D context, this almost looks like an attachment to like a Gundam. Like that doesn't look like a handle so much as it looks like an insert.
Interesting.
Like instead of a Gundam, like you would take off the Gundam's hand, and insert that into the forearm part, and as it slices, it can also do this thing where then it shoots something and then comes, and then it slices back down.
I kind of like that. Imagine if that was like imagine if we morphed it a little bit. Like, yes, this is the image for it, but it's like what's his name? Captain Hook's hook. It's like it's just a little prosthetic.
Yeah.
That's the word I'm looking for.
So again, if we even like shrink this, because this doesn't have to be like a full ass sword, this could be almost dagger sized.
Okay.
And again, you could have this just like as like a little attachment where, it doesn't have, like, this thing doesn't have to be like 6 foot tall, big. This entire sword could be like a foot long, and then it just opens up, you just shoot it across. So basically it could just be like this could be like a single like a bolt, or this could be like a throwing dagger. Like this could be the size of a small throwing.
You just get specialized throwing daggers. That would be sick.
Yeah, so like that one's like just like a throwing dagger that big, that's like seated into like injection mechanism. So that means if that's only that big, this whole entire sword only has to be the size of a dirk dagger, which that's about what you could get, right? Like that could be shuriken size. Like this guy could be like shuriken size.
Easy.
So I like that idea of at least small, short sword or smaller, for sure. I'm thinking even short sword or even like dagger size.
Could be large dagger.
Because I can even do So let's see if I can find a proper size comparison between an actual like fighting dagger and a throw and like a throwing knife, because trying to see if I can find like an actual medieval dagger compared to like an actual throwing knife size.
Right.
Because what's the Japanese one? Like it's usually
kunai?
Yeah. So I'm thinking like the middle piece there is like more like a kunai.
Okay.
That's the size I'm thinking. So I'm trying to figure out what would be the next biggest size up to hold, because a kunai is usually about the size of a hand, right?
Some can be a little bit bigger, like because depending on the ones that you're using, like you have like a full handle in your hand, but it's literally just popping out either side, and that's about the same length as the blade for balancing purposes.
Right.
So it would be like about this, and then I've seen these daggers that basically just look like half swords, not even a short sword, but like a half sword. And that's kind of what I'm imagining, is like this half sword, almost machete, but like small machete size dagger, going around like a palm size kunai, with a little bit of a cross guard over it.
So here's some good examples. So that's too big. Oh yeah, perfect. So I bring up I want to grab a couple like good examples here of some size comparisons so we can actually get an idea of what we're talking about. Some real, get some inspired, and then let's do dagger size comparison.
Are we fairly solidified that we want this to be a prosthetic of sorts?
Not necessarily a prosthetic, but I'm thinking just not like a huge ass weapon at this point. I don't mind the idea of doing a prosthetic.
Okay.
Even if this was like, so I would say either prosthetic, handheld, or even like a like an armband weapon.
Oh, okay.
Where it's like you could like have it like slide out and then it would open up, you shoot it, and then it would close back, and then it's just another slash.
Interesting.
So kind of just like a one-shot wonder is what I'm thinking. Also make it a magic like a building that can like transforms.
A tower?
No, not quite. Almost though. Oh, maybe that's what we're kind of looking at. I mean, I don't think D&D would really care about the naming convention here, but I'm trying to get to the closest to like a smaller size that you could carry like on your arm like that.
Sure.
So I think you'd have to probably just call it a dagger or a short sword, and then the smaller one like a throwing knife or a kunai. But a couple options that I was looking at here. So like trying to look at like real life size, you know, like obviously that's about the size of, you know, a hand.
Sure.
And then again, about the size of your hand. And then a little bit, about maybe about twice the size of your hand.
Sure.
So that's the I think what we're shooting out of it.
Yes, that's what I was thinking of.
And then I'm thinking like so like if the kunai is a little bit smaller than that, between the short sword and like the sack sword,
Right.
I think is like what this whole thing is. So while I would probably say it's more to the sacks, because the kunai probably ends right about here, or like on this guy it probably ends right there. It would probably be between a sax and a short sword is what the whole thing is.
Got you.
But I would feel like calling it the sax would make it more likely to be on your arm.
I agree.
But
I agree, and I definitely believe that
for
there are
the mechanics, it's probably just going to have the abilities of a short sword,
sure.
and then it transforms to shoot the kunai
Okay.
once. I don't mind it because we were talking about how it has this rail system in here. I wouldn't mind if that like you know how this has this like armband. So if this is something that straps here, and that armband would kind of come across here, I don't mind it where it's like a blade. But when you want to shoot it, you can shoot it one of two ways. You can like charge it and then just shoot the once and then go back to blade mode, or you can charge it, hold on, and then what's inside that is actually the rope, and you can basically like try to use it as like a grappling hook, and then you use that thing to like have it reel, almost like help reel you in.
Interesting.
Or just be able to like as a instead of it holding through your arm, you can actually have
especially if this thing is like strapped on my arm. I'm thinking, what would stop me from putting some sort of bandolier type thing over top of it to like feed it new daggers?
I think at that point it would just be cumbersome and weighty. I think that would be, in my opinion, it would
Even
be
those first ones that you showed on there, those like
I just think the mechanism in my opinion, the mechanism would make it bulky and weighty.
Perhaps.
I think the idea of making this like an Assassin's, like kind of like Assassin's Creed,
Yeah.
but it has just a small one-time shot.
Yeah.
I kind of like that, but I
Almost
also
like how those people modify those pocket knives to like fire the blade.
yes, exactly. So it's basically that, but then the blade closes back.
Yeah.
But I also like a couple other ideas, right? So one, you have this blade that you can shoot out, right? Just boom, range shot, and it's another random weapon, right? Or another bladed weapon. But on top of that, I don't mind that saying that inside of here is like a like what we would probably call it more like it'd be like a metal wire, but it would just be like a reinforced like rope. And I don't mind that being like not necessarily a grappling, like it wouldn't reel you in because that mechanism wouldn't be D&D like.
Sure.
But I like the idea of being able to like stick it into a wall and then swing with it. And I like this part being like a handle. That's why that's there on top.
Oh, interesting.
So you do it and then you hold on instead of it like because you're just strapped to it.
Yeah,
right?
instead of it's just like
So if you're just doing that, you're just literally being like one armed. But if you hold on to it, you could like actually swing with it. So that's what I was thinking for feature 2. So 1, it shoots. 2, it shoots a secondary where you can choose to have it attached to the rope or just fire it off. This also has the benefit of if you're just going to fire it off, have it on the rope, fire it in an enemy, and then now you have an enemy on a leash. Like embed it into an enemy's leg or back, and you're just like, okay, I got it. And that's the that is to hold on to it, right? But I also wouldn't mind giving it another option where when it's open, closing the blade is also technically an attack. So you can open it, fire it, and if someone gets too close to you, get them in, and then have the blade like slap on them.
I like the idea of you keep it in the open position after you fired it, and then you just like melee strike somebody. Maybe your multi-class is a monk or something like that, and then you close it. I don't know if that would be like a reaction or something like
it would
that.
be different extra damage. Also, I'm thinking if you are wielding this as a regular sword and you crit, and it's a crit that's gonna like end it, I'm gonna let you have the option. Okay, you go in. And as you go in, you stab. You open the blade. I would let your crit be that you get to go through stabbing and then just be like.
Imagine you stab somebody in the neck and you open the blade. Just.
Or again, like imagine like the BBE's down and I'm just like, yeah, he's like, this is gonna be the last fight. And you're like, I go and then it's crit and you're like, how do you end it? Be like, I open it up. Like, but you don't have anything to fire. And he's like, I know. Put it right up to him and says, any last words? And right before he speaks, I close it. Like, you know what I mean? Just like, again, same thing, chop off his head.
Wild. I like it.
So that's, I'm actually okay with that. So does it need to be magical? It obviously looks like it's made from like some special materials. I'm thinking mithril is kind of what is the vibe I'm getting.
I mean, I was thinking there could be lots of different, I was thinking like, again, it doesn't have to be a big item. I'm thinking there could be lots of different variations.
So we're just
of this
making the
thing.
mechanic. We're not even making a magical item. We're just making the mechanical item, and then it can be imbued otherwise.
It doesn't even have to be magical. Like
that's what I'm saying. Like we're just making the sword.
Yes,
that also
we're
fires.
just making the item itself, the base thing.
So,
it's almost mundane. It could be made by any not necessarily any blacksmith. They'd have to have some
This is definitely an
technical
artificer. This is bare minimum still an artificer, but it's not necessarily magically imbued. Okay, so with that, it is basically a short sword, a double-bladed short sword. So it does short sword damage and all of that.
Okay,
but the blades can part to fire a single throwing knife or kunai.
Okay,
one of two ways, with or without a rope attached.
Okay.
Closing the blade after so I'm thinking closing the blade after while the rope is attached will sever the rope. So as long as the rope is out, the blades have to stay open.
I'm okay with that.
I think that's totally legit because it's also kind of a reaction to close it. It should be a reaction to open or close it. I don't think it should be an action to. It should be an action to fire. It shouldn't be an action to open it. Like basically, it's a reaction to prep it for fire.
I would say,
like you said, a reaction to close it, a reaction to open it. But again, a reaction to open it is just to get ready for firing. So it's kind of like it's a reaction, or should it be a bonus action?
That's what I'm thinking. I'm like,
I'm okay
like
with bonus action because it is preparatory for an attack, technically, and it can do damage. So at bare minimum, I think a bonus action makes more sense.
I think a bonus action makes the most sense. I'm trying to figure out how beneficial it would be to do either as a reaction, because it does make sense that whichever one you do, you use it for both.
The only reason I can imagine it being as a reaction is, say you attach it to a person or a thing for like the rope purpose, and that thing, again, very situational, goes over a cliff.
Sure.
And it's not your turn.
Sure.
Like the reaction to sever it would be nice, because if I can't sever it, then I have to make the contest to go with it.
Sure.
So my only thing would be a reaction to close it in order to sever it, but I totally get a bonus action to open it, because those are also a little bit different things, right? Like the quick method of getting it closed may be a reaction, but opening it could be a bonus action, I guess. It definitely is a weird debate.
Yeah, but I get what you're saying.
But it is a whole mechanism, right? It isn't just going to be like an instantaneous. It's not like the thing that I like to make would be more of a reaction. The thing that, like the sliding dagger that just slides out, slides in. I don't mind that being a reaction because it's literally this motion. This thing, I'm pretty sure you'd be like pulling back on that to charge it open or something, right? Like this is probably more like a crossbow. So at bare minimum, it's going to take more than just you flicking your wrist. I think there should be a justification that like you have to pull back on this black handle to charge it. That therefore it should bare minimum
you have to pull back on it
to open it up. So I'm okay calling it a bonus action to charge it, at least to open it and get it ready. But I could see again but again, a reaction as in you just hit a button and it snaps shut. The snap shut could be the reaction because it's almost like under tension. Whereas charging it, kind of like reloading's a bonus action, not a reaction, right?
So it's almost the opposite of most pocket knives. You can open it stupid fast, but then you have to like push the little tab on the back to like close it down.
Yeah, this would be the opposite. This thing is primed to be in sword position. The tension is what also helps like shoot it. You know what I mean? It's like internal mechanisms could say that the internal stress is what causes it to be able to fire. It sounds like it would sound complicated.
It doesn't, because like imagine if this action here is like pulling it back behind some tab or lever that enables it to, when you press it, it shoots back forward. This pulling it back is what's pulling it under tension.
Yeah.
And then
there's two types of tension. There's the tension for the kunai, but the tension for the blades.
Yes.
So that's why it's a bonus action, because you're technically pulling back two tensions, but not as much as, say, it's an obviously better mechanism than a crossbow. But that's, I would say bonus action to charge, reaction, not a reaction to fire, but a reaction to close. Because then you can fire and close it in the same turn.
Sure.
You can actually charge, fire, and close in the same turn.
But that is your whole turn.
But that would be kind of dope. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
to be able to be like, pow, chink, like, you know what I mean? Just all in one move, you fire, and then you're still sword ready. That'd be kind of dope. But it should cost you everything. You know what I mean? That shouldn't be something you do and then you still get action. And then otherwise it acts as a regular weapon. It's a regular sword that, you just don't have to hold, which is again cool, because if you want to multi-class into a wizard, that same hand could hold your spell focus and still have a hand free.
Sure.
So I do like the idea that unless you want to say that you have to hold on to like a grip.
Something, yeah.
But yeah, I'm totally cool with having this be like an attached short sword that, as a bonus action, you can charge for a single shot kunai that may or may not, you can choose to have a rope on it, and that rope can I would say, like, limitation is the rope can only hold, since it's a thinner rope, it essentially can only hold like maybe double your weight, so then you can justify like holding onto a person, and then maybe swinging yourself with your gear, but you're not going to swing with people. You're not going to Indiana Jones the party across the cavern. Right. You could swing across with all of your armor and stuff. You're not going to take every party member and their stuff and their armor on swings.
Yeah.
That I kind of like that limitation, as in this thing is designed with a small twine, right? It's a small rope, just enough to handle the user.
Right.
It is not, if you want rope, you have 50 feet of rope that y'all bought. You have hemp rope that will carry you guys. This is for the assassin to get around.
This is your Batman grappling hook.
So I also like, if we wanted to write small little things like, it can handle twice your weight or a creature of equal size. As in, if you target somebody, you can you can win a contest against someone of equal size. Anyone bigger than you, the rope would snap because they are too much, or they're just going to drag you, right? Like it can basically hold your weight. So I like that. And like I like you, and then reaction to close it, and like you said, doesn't need anything magical. Like why not just create a mundane item?
Yeah.
If it wants to be magical, just swap that, swap it out with an actual gem and say the gem does something magical.
Sure.
Right. I mean, hell, we could even just say maybe this is one of those items created by my wizard artificer, but maybe that gem is just what helps power like the maybe it's just like more of an assist for why it's so easy for you to cock it back and fire it like a crossbow that takes fundamental loads of power.
Right.
Maybe it is magical in the sense that it is magically imbued from an artificer to make that a bonus action.
Okay.
So it's still magical. It doesn't do magical damage. Like it's not that magical, but maybe that gem is what makes your, kind of like how gears work. What's it called when you do that? When like you change the size of gears, so the less you do, the more you put in.
Yeah, I forget what it's called.
Yeah, but you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Like, what if that was the magical version where that gem's in there and your mechanical force is, multiplied.
Right.
Which is why this thing shoots like it does with as little force that you need to put into it.
Interesting.
So again, you could that's the lore behind it. It was made by an artificer. It's low level magic, just enough to be able to operate, because otherwise it'd be cool. Like if this thing ever got like dispel magic on it, it's just like literally almost impossible to pull back. Like a regular, like by yourself, like you'd have to have like two people like help pull so like normally without magic, you'd have to have like two people help pull. Like you pull this while they pull like the thing back, so it could still work, but it's like this mechanism is literally so tight you can't just with one arm pull it back a half, like a half foot and cock the whole thing, because it's a similar thing to like a real crossbow, right? You're pulling back so little, but you have lots of force on it, right? Which is usually why you have to have like some sort of helping mechanism.
Sure. That's
why this thing is so small, right? You're barely pulling back, but you're getting those blades to come all the way back under enough force to snap forward and fire this thing.
Right.
So the idea of if there was a mechanism that powerful, like a compound bow, the draw force would be so immense because it's so compacted that it would be like you'd have to have a 20 strength to do it.
Sure.
Without the gem. But with the gem, anybody can do it.
Okay.
So that would be my lore behind it, is just it's only magical enough to make it to where the artificer didn't need his barbarian buddy to cock it for him.
Wild.
I like this idea. What's going on, Soul? You missed a ton. We just did your bow sword. I think that's the one that you submitted. This one was fun. I actually liked this. Oh, that was second. But yeah, so yeah, I like this. I like the fact that it's not like a magical weapon, but being made from an artificer, it just has magical-ish components.
Right.
More for just how it's built. But otherwise, I love that. I love the fact that it's a sword that can shoot and can snap on somebody. You know what I mean? Like that's at its core, that's all it can do. But that's dope. Fair. That's fucking dope. Dude.
Should it have any specific features when it comes to like snapping close? Is there like different damage it rolls? Is there
like when it snaps closed?
Yeah.
I would say that the snap cuts its own rope. It can cut other non-magical rope. So like if you can just snap and just like just like you would be able to like I mean you could cut a rope with a sword anyway, right? So I would say that you can cut most things like that. I wouldn't say that it's powerful enough to like break open a door. It's not like the jaws of life.
If it was together in somebody or something and you were trying to cock it, would that be enough to
I know we said something about like being able to do that like on a crit or whatever, but
that's if it's closed and you want to open it. And we're trying to cock it. So
Well,
like,
yeah.
that's very intentional. That's like,
yeah.
like, is that plausible to even try and do mid combat? Is it have enough strength to pull? Like, if it was mid chest, would that work?
That's why I think I would, maybe if it was a crit, maybe if like you critted and it's like, okay, go right ahead, you can do that. But I don't know if allowing that to be like it's just a standard
practice,
like
yeah.
it just works, right? Like in an adrenaline rush moment, maybe, you know what I mean? Yeah, no, this was actually really cool. So I don't know how much you caught of that, but basically what we decided was it's essentially a short sword for mechanical purposes, but it's probably slightly smaller than a short sword overall. It does attach to your arm, so it actually lashes to your forearm to be used as a sword. And then the features are that it can be this little handle back here, the black handle here. You would cock that back, and that's what opens up the blades. This would then be primed as like a small kunai or, you know, throwing knife to be fired out, similar to crossbow style, but do damage of a kunai. And you have two options there. You can either fire it just as a weapon, or you can fire it with a small twine or rope that's embedded in the handle here. That would be like twined up in here. That would be able to hold basically like, essentially we would say like twice your weight, or verbiage enough to say it can hold the wearer and their items, but no more. So it's not meant to be like Indiana Jonesing people across a cavern. It's more of just to be able to get you around. Or it can, if you hit a target of your size or smaller, you can make a strength check to basically like kind of lasso them in a sense. Like you stab them and it's embedded in them, and then you can hold them back because it's on top of them. So those are the two types of aspects that we had for the internal mechanism for the kunai. And then we did decide that as long as if the kunai was fired with the rope, the sword has to remain in the open position, because once it shuts, it automatically cuts its own rope. So that's just like a feature of being able to do that. We also decided that to charge it, it requires a bonus action. So to turn it into the crossbow effect, it's a bonus action. Obviously, to fire it, it would be an action. But to retract it back to sword mode is only going to be a reaction. And we decided that because with even the mechanism being assisted, it still takes effort to cock it back and actually open up the mechanism in order to have the ability to have the tension. But the ability to, say, cut the rope if you stab somebody and then they get thrown off a cliff and it's not your turn, we wanted to kind of give the option of being able to react at any point to just press a button and cut the rope. So that's the justification for why it can close on a reaction but has to open on a bonus action. And then otherwise it just acts as a short sword.
And is the closing, especially if it can be done as a reaction, I feel like people would want to be able to use it as like in an attack of opportunity situation potentially.
Yeah, I thought about that too, because then you're basically saying if it can close and we're saying it can do damage, does that basically say people can use it as an attack, as a reaction? And that's kind of like, that's where it kind of gets a little bit messy, because the act of closing it does not necessarily mean you're in a position to be able to attack somebody, and moving it into said position isn't part of the reaction. The reaction is literally just hitting a button and doing this.
Yeah.
This doesn't equate to you putting it over here first. And I think that's like, I could see why people would try to be like, but you said as a reaction I can do it, and he's right here, so I do it on him. And I'm like, that would be moving and causing you to...
What if they're grappled?
I think it's in a dangerous territory to expand a reaction to generate a whole ass attack. That's not an opportunity attack.
I would say yes, but it is specifically with this weapon, which is a specialty weapon. It is also only when you have another creature grappled, which is not guaranteed. It's only like you have to use it in this specific
But again, also considering like what having a creature grappled would mean, and this thing is like, split on your arm, and then you're trying to like close it on someone
like,
who's.
I'm looking at it like this, like just if I'm like holding your wrist or something like that, I just point my wrist at you, at your arm, at your whatever, and I just close it.
See, I would so all of that, like even in that context, that's still more of an action. Like there's a lot more involved than just like super situational. Maybe in context, I could be like, hey, we're in the right situation. I'm going to use my reaction. Would it do them damage? Like, again, if you're in the right situation, I get it. I don't know if I'd allow it to be controlled like that.
How about this? Could I, on my turn, use my bonus action to close it?
Like, for the purposes of an attack?
Yeah, because there's plenty of bonus action attacks. And theoretically, you have the ability to do a secondary attack with your offhand as a bonus action. And if you're not using your bonus action to draw it back.
Okay, I don't mind adding verbiage that says you may you may use this feature as you would an offhand bonus action. Like, so if you're using it as you would an offhanded attack, then yes. If we add that verbiage in that it works as an offhanded attack, you're basically, because again, at that point you wouldn't have been able to attack the first time. Well, I guess that means,
you could.
Well, not really though, because if it's open, it doesn't, it would have been an action to fire it maybe.
Imagine if I just prepped it, I opened it and I fired it one turn. Didn't use my reaction. Now it's open, right? Now, either I can attack as in like punch, or I can, theoretically, I could have another weapon in my other hand.
Yeah,
if I want to do that.
I'm just trying to think of like, I'm just wondering, should we add the verbiage that you can use it as your offhanded bonus attack or whatever, as long as you did not use the weapon to attack. Like again, like I don't know if it is it. And
as long as you didn't use it to.
Oh, like again, because the whole point is you're basically giving any class that picks it up a free bonus attack, like that they normally wouldn't get. And I'm just trying to make sure that that's okay for like if someone's a fighter in the group and that's their deal, right? So again, if I give this to somebody and they can attack, like open it up one round, the next round do a slice attack and then bonus attack.
I will say attacks with this weapon while open count as unarmed strikes.
Well,
unless
I'm just talking about like, because if I use if it's open, right, and it has blades, so obviously I can attack with it.
Is that are you talking about like?
Yes, right, because that's the idea, right? I would use my action to attack like that, and then with your thing, I would then move it into position as a bonus action to then have it close, effectively giving me 2 attacks. And while I could unarm attack, because it's attacking with blades, I'm not taking any penalty of damage, right? So unless we change the damage of the snap attack versus its real attack, right? Unless we lower that, that's what I'm concerned about. Is you are basically saying what normally would have been a lesser of an attack is now equal to your main attack.
Right.
That's my only concern about giving it a bonus action, unless we say you can use this as a bonus action attack if you have not already attacked with the weapon. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know how to make it sound better.
I don't, again, because it's a specialty weapon, like maybe it's uncommon, maybe it's rare, Like, I don't know how rare is, if there's like 100 of them, if there's only 10, but like, I don't mind, like, and we haven't even put like a price on this, right? Like, imagine, and again,
I mean, I guess it really is only 1 extra attack every other round, even if you spammed it. You still need a bonus action to cock it and a bonus action to use it. So realistically, you're only giving yourself 1 extra attack every other round.
Yeah,
at the absolute most.
It's I don't think it's too crazy.
Yeah. Do unarmed strikes have any difference in ability to hit? Like, do they have a penalty to hit?
No. The only thing is, I don't know if everyone's trained in unarmed strikes. meaning you don't
that's
always get
why.
your attack, your proficiency bonus added to the attack. I will also say monks obviously get a increased advantage in unarmed strikes. So there'll be one class that gets to take a lot better advantage of it. I think there's a feat.
I mean, I wouldn't mind doing something like when it's closed, it does like a D8, and when it's open, it does like a D6. Because even if it's still the same blade, a blade that you're in control of in front of you, as you normally would, will act different than a blade that's off to your side that you're trying to.
Which one do you think does more? Oh, you're talking about attacks while
While it's open. Like when
attacks
when
with your
it's,
attack action. Yeah,
when
yeah,
it's
yeah.
open and you're doing melee attacks when it's open, I could justify having less damage output.
I would agree
only
with
does
that.
like a D6, whereas when it's closed, it does a full D8. Because at that point, you're doing, you're actually doing solid damage, whereas this one you're only getting the slicing part, but you're not really getting like, you're not getting the penetrative like force.
Well, with the closing, what die would you give the closing?
The snap,
Mm-hmm.
either equal to the 1d6 or even a 1d4. Like, because again, the snap is only as much as the tension that you're not doing anything for it. So really, it's just a combination of the tension against their armor and the potential for them cutting their skin.
Sure.
So you could even just do a 1d4, 1d6, 1d8. So the snap is, and as a bonus action, you can do a 1d4 of damage with a snap. If it's open, you're doing 1d6, but you really want it to be doing the 1d8. So it gives you the incentive to keep it closed, but while it's open, it's not useless. And if you do a 1d6 slash and get your bonus action, you're doing a 1d6 and a 1d4.
Sure.
Which then now it turns into now rolling into a 1d8. So it's one of those things where it's constantly being versatile and usable.
I like the cycle that you get with it, a 1d8 while it's closed, then you open it, and then you get a 1d6 and a 1d4. Like that's, and I honestly kind of like, because if I'm looking at the odds of what I could get with a 1d6 and a 1d4, like they're better. I'm getting a minimum of 2.
Yeah.
Regardless, right? Like, which is always better when you roll 2 dice. But it's not quite 2d6s, but
I mean, it's still a D10. I mean, it's the equivalent of a D10. So it's like if you min max it, you're actually getting more damage output. So if you do it, you still get the benefit of it as long as you roll right. Yeah. Technically sold, by the way, I think canonically he only has one. Canonically, I'm pretty sure Scorpion only has
I'm pretty sure he's only
one hand dagger. Or like, I think it's his right hand too. No. Actually, I do believe it's his left hand, if I remember correctly.
Is it? I'm trying to vision. Then again, I'm picturing a very terrible version of the movie.
Yeah. But no, I'm pretty sure Scorpion canonically only has one.
Although at some point when I
hand.
was playing the really, really old games, I 100% thought it came out of his stomach. Because it kind of looks like that.
Well, because
like
he does this and then he does
ones.
that. So it kind of looks like he grabs it from his stomach, but it's just because it's the same animation from everything.
Like wild.
And this is the second one we've done. The first one we did was actually pretty cool. It actually, unfortunate that you weren't here. That one, the other item not only now exists in High Point, it's part of a giant set, and it's spawned an entire brand new
character
NPC, like a whole named ass NPC who has now a collection of items that I have to create for High Point. So unfortunate you weren't here because that was a really fun one.
It was a lot of fun. It was very cool.
But when we write it all up, Kage will have to have those posted.
Yeah.
But I'm happy with this. I think those are the right damages. I think D8 when closed, D6 when open, D4 snapping, and the kunai is going to be the same. Well, so we should look up what's the difference between a crossbow and the kunai. D&D crossbow damage. So a hand crossbow, which is what we're modeling this after, will do a D6, while a light crossbow, something a little bit bigger, will do a D8. And then let's find out what it says a kunai damage is. So this says that a kunai does a D4 of piercing damage. So I'm okay calling it, if a hand crossbow is a D6 and the kunai is a D4, I'm okay calling it a D6 because it's basically just a kunai coming out of a crossbow.
Yeah.
It's got to do the extra damage.
Sure.
So I'm okay calling the kunai a d6, the open a d6, the snap a d4, and the sword a d8.
Okay.
And then we already know the rest of it. So pretty versatile weapon, can be used by most classes, but I think there's definitely a few classes that would much more benefit from it.
Sure.
You know, anything that wants to be versatile around the battlefield and everything like that, I think can truly use this very well.
Yeah, and I do think there's a lot of very, very cool things that it can do. Cool combinations, cool. I feel like it really gives an opportunity for people to be creative with it, and the fact that it is a fairly diverse item, meaning like it's kind of uncommon. Like you can find it places. You could commission a blacksmith to build it for you. Like it's not something that's so unheard of, and it's not just something that one person can make, right?
Yeah.
Like that. I love the fact that it's out there and people can like go and do stuff with it.
It kind of gives me the same vibes. Damn it. As Ruby, the anime Ruby.
Oh yeah.
Like it makes me want to like look more at these morphine weapons. Like just imagine just like a whole like society that like
dude, that monkey dude
these
scene still trips me out when I first watched that. Dude,
yeah,
that was so wild.
Awesome. I love this. I think this thing is absolutely amazing. Interesting. So now we got to come up with a name. Now we have the lore. I mean, what it's made out of, I think, is inconsequential at this point.
I just put various metals.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, it would be DM decision if you want to make it special. I mean, I would also just put it at mithril, just if we really wanted to make it fancy.
Sure.
Because that's neither magical, but just it's all.
I still want to require it to be made by mithril.
That's
like
true.
You could have a steel one. You could have a.
Yeah, this could be DM. Like contextually,
sure.
Like material. We're gonna call it. This something like this has to have a badass. This is going to be something that's strapped to your arm. So it's going to be strapped to your arm. It's a sword. It's a hand crossbow. It's a grapple.
Let me ask a clarifying question. Is there anything that we are saying, like, say if I use this on a person, how are we saying this thing keeps you connected? What's stopping this dagger from just being pulled out of the wound?
Nothing. That would be an action of the like.
But what I mean is, like, if I'm trying to hold them there, right, hold them in place,
right,
why is me holding them there not pulling it out of their wound?
You could just put barbs on the kunai. You could just say that it has like there's like right here. You could just say like there's like small barbs that come off of it, and just say that it's designed kind of like a grappling hook. It's designed to hook on like the corner, so similar to why you can swing on it.
And that's what I was going to ask.
Essentially, it's like a mini. It's a kunai designed to be a grappling hook. So you could even just say that it has small barbs that if you hit an enemy, you can stick.
Okay.
And then it takes an action to remove. So nothing special. It just takes an action to remove.
Okay.
Or a bonus action. You can even just say it takes a bonus action. You just have to go down and yank it out. Does a D4 of damage.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Would you say that counts as specialty ammo?
I would say for ease of use, I would just say that it can replenish at the cost of a kunai. Like, it's going to cost you more than a bolt. But for ease of it, I would just say that these are easy modifications that anybody can make. Like, you're basically just asking them to make notches in order for it to catch on the flash, right? So I would be okay not calling it specialty.
So regular crossbow bolts are 1 gold piece for 20.
Mm-hmm. Depending on the kunai price, or even like a throw-in knife, or even a dagger price.
I feel like there should be a throwing dagger.
There usually is. There's usually something smaller than just a regular dagger.
Because a regular dagger is 2 gold pieces. Now, it's not that much more, but it is twice the price. So, I'm pretty confident a throwing dagger. But again, a bolt is, you get a gold for 20, and that's 2 gold for 1 dagger.
And that same thing, kunais are 2 gold too.
2 gold each?
Yeah. So again, and you can even say 3 gold for the modification, or, you know, whatever. But again, you can always say you can retrieve these. Like, there's nothing that says
sure.
This one, because normally like retrieving bolts is like a percentile roll or a small roll, and you get a part of them. This one can just be situational, as long as you remember to go look for it, and as long as it, you know, for no apparent reason got damaged. These can always, you can even just put it in there. These can, unless there's any, you know, unless damage, these can always be retrieved. Like, just write it in there if you really want, is these can always be retrieved, you know, barring destruction or whatever.
What about the example you gave about Indiana Jonesing?
Then that one would be lost. Like, you know what I mean? Like we could even just put it in there, you know, I don't know how we would put the language in there, but
no, I get what you're saying, but like
if you hit an enemy, you're gonna get it back. It's not gonna break. You can take it out of an enemy. If you launch it into the ceiling of a cave and cut it away,
then you launch to the ceiling of a cave.
Yeah, like, just go pay 3 gold and get a new one. But if you can go take it out of the flesh of somebody, or you miss and you just, you know, bring it back on the rope, and there you go. You're good. I do not mind making this way easier to retrieve, but I do feel like those moments of like the Indiana Jones, that should be a moment where you got to realize that you bring
so
spares.
You could just have a stash of
absolutely them. There's nothing saying that you can't just have
and then
normal
like,
kunai.
Every so often you'll lose one, but
and what's to say you don't just carry these modified kunai as throwing daggers, but they also happen to be, like, you're just known as the dude with the cool sword and all of these daggers, but people don't actually know until you fire it off. They're like, oh, that's not actually a dagger. It's like, nope, ammo. So everyone just thinks you're the dagger dude. No, like you just have like the bandolier of daggers, so everyone thinks you're the dagger dude. Everyone thinks you're just like awesome, you throw daggers everywhere, but no one realizes that those are basically like your shotgun shells. Like, you're the cowboy with all the, you know, like the shotgun shell belt. But
yeah.
But instead of shotgun shells, they're all just kunai. You're like, these, I don't throw these. What are you talking about? Loading up your weapon, you're just like, shoot these.
Wild. I like that. I like that a lot.
So yeah, that would be an easy way. I would just say that you would just buy a bandolier, and you would just literally just have them strapped to your chest, and you can just reload it. Done.
I like it.
But it's also a spare weapon too. You just also, this is a dagger. So I think that's cool. I like that.
I do indeed. I do indeed.
I like that better than trying to turn it into a bow. Because the only other thing would have been, when it turns into this, you grab this piece and like pull it back and then fire the kunai like a bow. I kind of like it being more like a hand crossbow and all like contained like an artificer made it.
No, I do agree.
Than being any more manual. And I think you had the right idea too. I think keeping it keeping it vague in terms of like its various materials, and not requiring to be magical out the gate, it's easy to improve it with magic over time.
Yeah,
it's easy to just say, hey, this can do lightning damage. Hey, when you fire, you know, it replaces your kunai like automatically. Like, there's nothing that says that this thing...
An artificer could cast. There's an infusion that they have that's repeating shot, and literally creates magical ammo for you. And
that's the thing. That, like, you could just say that, like, if you want to make it magical, this is a gemstone of repeating shot. So literally, you can just upgrade this entire mundane weapon and just say that's a gem of repeating shot. So whenever you fire the kunai at the start of your next turn, the gem of repeating shot automatically replenishes it. So then that way you can't spam fire. It's literally at the start of your turn. It just automatically replenishes your shot.
Sure.
I don't, you know what I mean? Like you could just small little increase and boom, this is now a magical weapon that's that much better.
I like it.
So
I like it a lot.
makes it easy, makes it versatile. And I think it makes it a lot of fun. I think this could be a lot of fun to mess around with. And again, just like have strapped to your arm like that and just kind of like run around with.
So we're saying an artificer created this?
I'm thinking this feels artificery, you know, like the idea of using slight bits of magic to make you be able to cock this thing a little bit easier, I think is like where I would go with it.
Okay.
Again, not overtly magical, but
I remember you responding to one of my TikTok comments with a video about there was this guy who was talking about like low level magic.
Yes, like the mundane magic.
Mundane
like
magic,
everyday commercial level magic. Yes.
And so you were talking about not like rulifying it, but you have something like I don't know if you said it was like blacksmith.
So basically it's very similar to like, okay, so Dov's a earthbender.
Sure.
And we have a set progression of how much as you level up, what types of earth-like materials you can do. So you upgrade more complex types of materials and how much you can deal with, right? So first you started with dust and dirt, and then you got sand, and then mud, and then rock, right? That's standard. That's what the class is going to do. But Dov learned specifically that because, early on they were able to control sand, and you wanted to have a parkour character, that if you were to put sand up, underneath your foot while you try to parkour, you get more grip and you can traverse areas easier. You can go up a straight wall and actually climb higher than most people because you actually have grip where they don't, right? That to me is like the commercial magic. That is not something I'm going to now say, oh, you're an earthbender. By the way, you can do this with parkour. Oh, you're an earthbender. You automatically be able to get to do this with sand. That's a Dov thing because Dov learned to do that based on Dov's lifestyle. Now, can another earthbender pick that trick up? Sure. But that is not going to be by default. Now, they are still going to get the same progression you did with sand, mud, dirt, rock, whatever. They're going to get the same amounts that they can deal with. But when you created that is now just something Dov can do and we don't have to roll for it. It's just a Dov feature, right?
Sure.
So that's what I was trying to get off in that TikTok is I loved what Sloan was doing in the sense of treating magic the way it should be treated, as a spectrum, as all levels, right? We believe in cantrips and versus first level spells, but we don't believe in everyday people just being able to like light their own fires.
Sure.
Like that should be something that is not everyone's common, but in a world of magic, why aren't more people just randomly being like, oh, it's getting kind of cold. Oh, that's all I can do. I can just do a spark.
Yeah.
Like just enough to light fire. Like,
what was that? What was that weird British TV show? I feel like it was called Extraordinary, where like literally everybody has powers, and some of them are like super mundane or normal, or isn't it Black Clover, where like 90% of the world has magic powers, but a lot of it's mundane, and only some of them get like grimoires.
And then just like we have this like we see it in TV shows, but they don't call it magic, right? They just they do like little weird things to make people seem spooky. But like imagine having an NPC who's just be like, oh, by the way, dearie, answer that door, and they're like, huh? Knock, knock, knock. That's their power. They have like 10 seconds of premonition. It's not life-changing. They're just like, oh, your tea's ready, by the way. You hear the tea kettle go off. Like shit like that. You know what I mean? That's low-level magic that I have in D&D. It's like it's
imagine that, but like only auditory. Like you can't see anything, you just can like hear like sounds.
And that's the thing is like I essentially don't really have a name for it. It's basically just being like, it's like just the touch of magic. It's like the simple fact that sorcerers are people who are magically inclined, like naturally, but they actually do something with it. But imagine how many people who are sorcerers that don't become sorcerers. Like you are a sorcerer because you have magic in your bloodline and you became an adventurer and to seek out more power. What about all the people who are still farmers? Your dad's probably a sorcerer, has the same bloodline, didn't go into their power, but what if your dad can calm down horses or cattle?
Sure.
He never thought of it as magic. He just had a way with cows. He had a way with chickens. Your dad just had a way with farming, but you're here flinging spells around. Well, why can't your dad? Well, maybe your parents can. Why aren't we that's what I look at is, so instead of codifying it and saying everybody can always do these things, which is fine.
Sure.
There's nothing wrong with that. I just don't like doing it on every little aspect, because then it becomes that whole thing of, here's an entire book of everything you can do. Decide here. I'll let you decide.
Yeah.
Versus well, what do you want to get out of it? And let me know what you want to do. And let's find out how you would have gotten there.
Yeah.
Not what are the list of options that you want. So that's why, yes, I don't like to codify it, but that's where, with blacksmiths, right? Some might learn how to light their own forge without tinder. Like, again, they can just do that. Maybe some I have some blacksmith who they tend heat. They have a kind of like a fire mage, but they don't cast spells, but they can sit there and they can warm or cool their furnace without like having to pump air. Like, they can just do it naturally. They can, as they're tempering their sword, they can keep the heat in the sword longer.
I almost like the idea that perhaps an artificer invented this, but there are plenty of blacksmiths that learned a type of magic that allows them to create something like this.
Well, and again, an artificer,
that way, it can not be like solidified. Like,
well, and again, an artificer aren't the only people that can create mechanical things,
sure.
Right? Like, an artificer didn't create the crossbow.
Sure.
So just because I like the idea that an artificer had their hand in this, maybe someone else made it, and an artificer only helped them figure out how to do it to where you can cock it with one hand.
Right.
Maybe that's all they did, but they didn't make it magically imbued. Maybe they tried, and the other person was like, I need this to always work in every condition. So the artificer gave them all the tools to figure out how to do it, and then they reverse engineered it to do it without magic or something, right? Like, tons of ways that you can lure this in. But yeah, so when it comes to like that low level magic, like I think that low level magic should be much more imbued. I like just putting it in the background, right? There are, like, again, I love putting in small magic in bars. This is actually, taverns are probably the place that I use it the most. Taverns that refill your glass without the waitress coming by is very common in High Point. You'll just be there and you'll be like, oh, I wanted another drink. Where's the waitress? Be like, as you grab your money out, you see your glass start to fill. And that's it. You can just put your money on the table and then just walk by and then grab your money. Like, I've done that so many times in taverns, and most people don't think about it. Most people just go, oh, that's cool. That's neat. But they think it's just like a cantrip or prestidigitation. But no, that's just a bartender who has magic, but isn't a spellcaster. They're not sitting there spending their life learning magic. They learned a small transportation magic, right? If you can cast Dimension Door and transfer a whole ass person and their shit across time and space, why can't a bartender who's magically inclined take a little bit of beer from this side of the room and put it over there? I've done that from the beginning. I'm not going to codify that. I'm not going to say, oh, you're a bard, you can move beer around the room specifically in this way. That's so many rules. Why don't I just say, yeah, the bartender can do that? Don't question it. It's magic. Well, I want to learn how to do that. Do you know how to cast Dimension Door? Do you know how to cast any transportation magic? No. Like, the thing is that is not magic they sought out to get. It was magic that they had, and it came out in their hobby.
Sure.
That's exactly
because I like stuff like that, because you can even explain it away as environmental. Like, I imagine like every single one of their cups has got this like symbol like etched in the bottom of it.
I've done that too,
and they're all attached to another portal in inside the ale. And then
sometimes it's items, sometimes it's magic from the person. There's always different reasons, right?
Yeah.
Like, sometimes it's the building itself. Sometimes the whole building just has magic workings, right? So there's a lot of different ways to do it. So I loved that idea. For 5th edition, you need to codify things a little bit more and make them more accessible, because most people aren't. Again, 5th edition isn't designed to have players or DMs like create these things. I should have changed our thing to the tangent. But you know what I mean? Like, 5th edition isn't designed for us to do that and then have it very happily bring that in. That's way more of an earlier edition, right? And that's why I love about earlier editions is we can do that. We can workshop that in and say, hey, you want that special ability, totally get it. Like with Vixie, right? She, instead of the magical route, like, again, I give all my players like some freebies up front, usually in the forms of feats or spells or these like special things that you could do. You were able to parkour a little bit better. um uh Vixie had a really cool idea. So for her character Ness, she wanted the ability to, because you always see this in a movie and TV, and she wanted an ability similar to this, right? Where how like there's always like the sword fight, and at some point like they're getting tired, and at one point someone's like starts smiling or whatever, and they're like, why are you smiling? And be like, because I have a secret. I'm not left-handed.
Yes.
And then they switch, and suddenly they're like slightly better, or they're no longer tired. She wanted to be able to do that. She just wanted like, how can I pull that off, and how can we make that happen? Because I'm like, how do you make that justifiable, right? How can you make something repeatable like that? So we worked it out. We hashed it out, and basically she used up some of her abilities from leveling up and everything to learn how to be ambidextrous. So first things first, she had to learn how to equally use both hands. So that's a proficiency point to do that. And then from there, it was just being able to remove the ability to, or the offhanded penalty.
Right.
So she just had to basically be able to not have a penalty for offhandedness. So that would be easy, right? Just come ambidextrous, learn a little bit of dual-handed fighting, and you're fine. But that's not enough, right? That's not what she wanted. She wanted the effect of the I'm not left-handed. The fight's just completely gone to a second realm, right? Like second wind almost, right? So just being able to do that doesn't really get that effect outside of cinematics. So I went the extra step and said, okay, here's your feat. It can only happen like basically not necessarily once per combat, but once per target, or essentially anybody within eye shot. It will only work on once.
Okay.
So it's basically you can't just keep repeating this, right? Because once you do it to one person, they're not going to be surprised. You keep switching hands.
Yeah.
So basically, once someone sees it, they can't be surprised by it again. But
is it like in a lifetime, or like?
I mean, it depends.
Sure.
It's high point. It really just depends on the situation of the person.
Fair enough.
But essentially, the ability is that when she activates this against a new target, or when she does the move, she gets advantage on her next during her next attacks.
Okay.
And she has multi-attack. So it's kind of
next
like
series of attacks.
So basically, it's just that whole halfway through the thing, she's just like, by the way, futoob, and that change. Whoever's looking, if she goes after him, it's like, it's not just the, oh my god, the surprise of it, but now you're actually fighting someone of a different fighting style. Like, especially with fencers, because she has a rapier. With fencing, if you're right-handed and you're up against a right-handed fencer, you both are fighting a very specific way. If they suddenly become a left-handed fencer, that's a different fighting style.
You know what I like to add on to that? I don't know if you have already, but imagine somebody who had like taken an action to make an insight check on like your fighting style to like gain an advantage.
Oh, I would absolutely. I would take that into account.
It would just kill that.
It would. No, and I would normally take that into account. But again, I'm not going to codify it.
Sure.
But I will take that into account. Like, oh shit, I don't know what I'm fighting against, because I understand at least, sword fighting to the point to where if someone changes stance, it ain't the same fight anymore. That's the whole point why several fighting styles have stances and multiple of them, because the moment you change stance, and how many times do you see sword matches where the moment someone changes a stance, the other one follows suit and changes a different stance?
Right.
Because the moment they change stance, you're probably no longer have the advantage. So
unless you're aware of what's going on, because like even in Star Wars, like everybody looks at like Obi-Wan Kenobi's like different stances when he's choosing to go into battle and doing different like they all mean different things, they all signify different, like it's very interesting. And I think nobody really pays attention to those types of things. But yeah, no, I totally get that. I totally get that.
So I think, I think low level magic, I've been doing it forever. I just think that it's easier to just justify when the environment calls for it, and not when it just should be something that anybody can pick regularly. And again, I think it makes it more special. I think it makes it more unique. And it's just more impactful. Again, like I love the idea, but if you can do, again, exactly like what I said in the tech talk, it comes down to the same conclusion that everyone who learns it the same way for the same purpose. And I don't want that. Right.
Sure.
But again, I'm not expecting players to want to be able to, keep a Coke forge going at a steady temperature. Like, when's that ever going to benefit truly a player to have that ability? So why am I going to codify it? Right. Sure. Why am I going to worry about, a blacksmith who I gave like almost like clairvoyance to, so they know exactly when their metal's been fused. You know what I mean? Like shit like that, where they can like, you know what I mean? Like small little things where if you extrapolate, you can see what it would have turned into, right? Like what kind of mage they would have been. But it doesn't necessarily say that they're a class of magic user. They just have magical tendency. And it can be anything from them being a magical race to them just being like a sorcerer, having a magical, inclination. Hell, you can even just write into the backstory that they flunked out of wizard school. You know what I mean? It's like flunking out of high school, where I got enough to know the basics. I just never got enough to get a career. So now I'm a blacksmith, but I remember some incantations. I remember some cantrips. Like I don't have to get paper every morning. I can light my own coke forge with a small incantation that I know. Like I can just, get the heat going long enough to just add coals to it. Like I know that
say somebody in a scenario like that would only have access to standard wizard-like spells.
I would say, I would say like, again, that backstory would just be someone who could like, they don't have to pump the bellows, because they know basic enough to where just in a small area they could just move enough air to their own bellows. They don't have to pump it. They just literally
that's prestidigitation. Like that's
exactly.
Yeah.
But but it wouldn't be prestidigitation. They wouldn't also be able to go, oh, I'm cleaning up real quick.
Right.
Their control is so limited that they get one part of prestidigitation.
Interesting. Okay.
And again, it's like prestidigitation, right? It's the first spell everyone learns when you can fully control magic, which is why it can do so much. But imagine if you knew that you had some sort of inkling to magic, but no one ever taught you. You would never know everything prestidigitation could do, but what would come out of that, how you would connect to prestidigitation, would probably be in your hobbies. So again, a blacksmith being able to, pile up his coals and then just be able to think real hard, and all of a sudden they start glowing.
Sure.
Because he got the spark from last night, the very inside, he just got it heated up. And then when he went to go do his bellows one time, he just like breathed out really hard and was just like, ugh, and then just suddenly the coke forge like heated up.
Came back to life.
And then after a while, he's like, holy shit, I can just pump air into it myself, right? These are things that, again, you wouldn't call this a spellcaster. You wouldn't think anything of it, but he now might be a more effective blacksmith. So now he's going to be more successful. So he's the blacksmith you go to in town, because he's the one who has the best shop, because he's the one who sells the most. Why? Because he's the one who spends the least time tending to his forge. This is not a spellcaster. This is not someone you're going to be like, oh my God, you're so amazing. But in a world of mundane people, he's the guy with technology. He's the guy that before you had to hire an assistant to have bellows manually, and then someone invented the pump bellows that's just by your foot. He's the guy with the pump bellows.
Sure.
He is not an industrial forge. He's not making things by the dozens, but he has one little thing that puts him above everyone else. If you could save yourself an hour every morning not having to tend to your forge, you're making a whole extra knife that day. If you don't have to pay someone to bellows you, you're buying extra equipment for another sword for the next, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's that's the way I like to look at sometimes, is like what we forget is like we were talking about this earlier. One of the items that I want to do later at some point is, and I'm glad that we did this almost with this one, is not make it magical. Because sometimes when we create things, I think a lot of the times we create them to fit a need instead of the idea that things can exist just to exist, right?
Yeah.
And magic like this, magic items are kind of that idea where sometimes we forget that the value of something is in the story, either the story that it tells or the story it helped tells, right?
Right.
A blacksmith with this low level power does nothing for the party, does nothing for the big plot, but it helps tell the story of magic, right?
Sure.
Instead of dividing it between you either can full on magic or no magic at all, this tells the story of the things that are in between. There are the people who have absolutely no magic, and then there are the people that know they have magic and did something with it. That's you. That's the mage school. It's all these spell casters. But if you found out you had magical ability and then went and did something with it, does that not mean equally there's a chance that someone found out that very same thing and chose not to do something?
Sure.
So what happens then? You have magical ability, but you don't do anything with it. You don't do anything to hone it, but it's there. It's going to somehow manifest some point in your life.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I love using
Interesting.
that to explain mundane magic.
Okay.
Sometimes it's just little things that allow you to be better. Again, it's like having like just a small amount of technology. It's like just being ahead of everybody else because you have one tiny thing above them.
Yeah.
And this is also another way that I like to explain how I do certain NPC builds. It's very similar in tandem, right? Because when you take magic to that extent, you can kind of get away with, again, a spectrum of things. You can have people, you can have someone who's not a spellcaster, but be very, very good at one thing that is magic.
Right.
Because they didn't become a spellcaster. They didn't learn about magic. What they learned is how to use this one aspect of magic very, 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 very well. Right?
Sure.
And they don't know anything else about magic, but they know how to do this one thing with it. So like, I'm totally cool with, with like allowing that to be a unique aspect, right? And if I'm allowing that to be a unique aspect with magic, I kind of allow that to be a unique thing with anything. As in,
Fair.
specialties are great, but a lot of times I think that there are some specialties that we forget should take dedication. So one thing that I like to do with NPC builds is not just with specialty magic like this, right? Like, oh, they can do something that no one else normally could with magic. Sometimes I'll do it with magic, but also I'll do it with special abilities or feats. Like I'll say this person can do this really awesome, what normally wouldn't be possible in D&D, and I'll present it. Sometimes I've had players get mad. They're like, how can they do this? Or like, I did this in the D&D Discord a while back, where there was like the arena. And I had a fight against these assassins who had this really cool ability where they kind of like, it was like a version of me yourself, but they all basically made like images of themselves, surrounded the group, and they were able to basically attack from any image at will. So essentially you never knew who was going to attack you.
Right.
But whenever you attacked, you had to basically roll to see if you hit a real one or a fake one.
Got you.
And this wasn't a spell or anything. This was a very specific ability to this group. And at one point I had one player was like questioning like, isn't this kind of unfair? Like, it's not even an ability we could have known about. You know what I mean? Like the whole thing of like,
Sure.
I don't know about it. It's not in the book. It's not fair to fight against something I can't tell about. But then after the fight, they were just like, that seems kind of OP. And I'm like, it seems OP until you realize that's all they can do. Like what they didn't realize throughout the rest of the battle is none of them had multi-attack. None of them had a magical weapon. None of them, literally the entire battle was, they walked onto the field, they split up and surrounded the party like this. And then the party was getting hit for like 1d6. And their aim was kind of shit. It was like they hit like every third attack for like a 1d6. So the party was mad because it seemed like these guys were hella OP. And then they found out that while they were only battling like 3 of them, the original party was like 5. So the images would have been even more. You know what I mean? Like it would have been even a more challenge. But
Right.
in the course of the arena, it just happened that they lost 2 members. But again, here was my justification for it. They knew nothing else. As a group, as that fighting group, that's all they knew how to do. That was their thing. They knew how to do this little like split ourselves, surround the enemy, and then just like ping them until they're dead and make it very difficult for you to hit us. But no magical weapons, no magical armor, no special skills, not super high stats. Like these guys, if you hit them, they'll go down pretty quickly. It's just you have to be able to hit them. But that was their only thing they had was
Right.
We're gonna make it hard to hit us, but once you do, we are just regular people who just know this. They weren't some crazy assassins who were jumping in and out of planes of existence and making it super impossible.
Right.
But I like that. I liked this idea because it's the same thing as if a group, it's kind of like when you came to me and said, I want to do a Greek themed like a game, and I made one for you. It's the same thing. If someone says I want to do this really cool ability, I'm totally down for it, but I'm also going to justify it with what are you going to give up to learn it? Right?
Yeah.
These guys gave up what you would consider ASIs and feats and other level up options. Because if you were to say, hey, I'm not going to take an ASI or a feat, can me and this other partner, like we leveled up, we're going to give up our ASI and feat in order to be able to do this one thing together. Like this like combined feat. I'd let players do that. But you have to basically say,
Okay.
I'm giving up what I normally would have learned to spend time learning this. And so if you do that over the course of 10 levels, I'm going to let you do something super impressive. but you're gonna have to give up the things that you would have been able to learn otherwise,
Right.
that are obviously more accessible and more easy to learn.
Okay. No, that's a fair balance.
And I think that works both with regular abilities as well as magic, right? Being able to, it's kind of like upcasting and downcasting. That's the idea, right? It's learning that sacrifice. So
Yeah.
if I don't want to, if I want to learn something really OP, I've got to not be able to do the things that I would think are standard, right?
Sure.
If you want to have something really nice in life, you can't have, it's like you can't have the best career and, still be in school and still be, going out on dates every night and still, be, a live streamer.
You can't, but you're going to get exhausted and you're going to get burnt out. And
you know what I mean? Like,
there's a give and take with all the things.
So it's like, let's say you want a master's degree. You're probably not going to, again, have a full-time job and a full-time career, or a full-time career and go to school full-time and have a full-time relationship and have a full-time side gig. You know what I mean? Like you can't have all of those things full-time. One of those things will have to slip. You'd have to get rid of games. You'd have to sacrifice family or friends, right? You'd have to sacrifice sleep. Something's going to have to be sacrificed for you to get that degree that not everybody else can get.
Exactly.
But you know what you're not going to get? The Friday nights at the bar. That's easy, low-hanging fruit that everybody can have. But you have to give up. So while other people can say, hey, I have a beer tolerance, or I'm really good at pool because me and my buddies go out every week, I'm not going to get these, what I would call mundane skill sets.
Sure.
But what I'm going to walk away with is a fucking degree in astrophysics. And I'm going to go get, hopefully, a life-changing job. Like, that's not to say like a well-paying job, but a job that will change the world, right?
Sure.
That's not something everybody can have. But you can't always have both. So I'm okay with this idea of dedication. And that's what I like to do with NPCs, is kind of use them as show-offs, where it's like, hey, here's an NPC that can do something really cool, but I'm also going to show you what he can't do.
Yeah.
What did this NPC give up to do this really cool thing?
Yeah.
Because while you guys are adventuring, leveling up, ASIs, feats, all this cool stuff, these guys go home and practice this, and that's all they do. They're not making money. They're not out there, like they're literally spending all of their free time learning how to do that ability, which is why it seems OP. Because they deserve it.
Because they're really good at it.
Right? But that's the idea, right? Is how do you put that, kind of like what you were talking about earlier in the stream about, when you were onboarding those new players, right? It's presenting the right idea of what's possible, giving them a roadmap.
Exactly.
Not a clean roadmap, but giving them an idea of what's possible without giving them a laundry list of, now here, select what you want to do.
Yeah.
I like giving everybody a direction of what's possible. Like, hey, here are your limits, right? Like sky's the limit, and here are various examples. But those examples are not the exhaustive list. And I think that's my biggest thing with trying to make those little customizations for players, is I don't want them to feel like it's an exhaustive list that they have to be limited by, but I also don't want to make it so complicated that they feel like they can't think of anything.
Sure.
That's why it comes down to, don't worry about the mechanics. Just tell me, what is it that you want to do and why? Like, again, Vixie wanted to do the whole, I want to be in that scene where I surprise him and change hands and then I get something. Like, I want to be able to turn the tide of the battle. So I think being able, and since she has 3 attacks per round at this point, when she does that, her next turn is basically at advantage. I think that's totally awesome. Because again, it's not once per combat, once per turn, once per anything. It's literally once per person. Once that person realizes you can do that, they're not going to get caught by it, and it's only going to be that one turn. After that, they've realized what you've done, and now they're going to adjust. But those next attacks are going to be completely at advantage. And it's not just the next attack, it's her whole turn. Because the way I look at it is, again, your fighting style has changed. And now you're going to rapid fire attacks. Mm-hmm. They're not going to block one and then instantly
get right back into it.
No, they're going to be like stumbling, trying to realize what just happened. And then they have to, on their turn, recuperate, right? So yeah, I think it was just a really cool concept. Also, funny enough, we have a second one for her too. We're working out the kinks because I haven't nailed down exactly how I want it. But funny enough, so we were talking about the thing where she can do that as kind of like the rapier fighter, which I thought was really funny. And then we were talking about it earlier, or the last gaming session we were playing, she was fighting some owlbears, and we made this joke, and it's kind of leaning into like what her second ability is going to be. Since she has 3 attacks per round, I'm thinking about getting an option to where if she crits on her first attack, like if she's going to attack, it's like if she agrees or is at her first of 3 attacks and she crits, I'm thinking about letting her have the choice. You can continue your next 2 rolls and see what happens, or you can forego rolling them to guarantee standard hit, right?
Okay.
So you don't get a chance for more crits, whatever. But the idea is that they all have to be immediately used on the same target. And you're actually, I think the other option was you're actually giving up this crit too. So you're not going to do crit damage, but you basically
guarantee all of your hits.
You get all 3 hits. And because her character's name is Ness, and she's a rapier fighter, we're basically giving her the Zoro move, where if she crits on her first one, she can forgo the crit damage and forgo the other rolls, guaranteed hit all 3, but she carves an N into the person.
Wild.
So yeah, so she gets to do the Zoro thing where it's like crit, and then just does this like little like N like slice because she has 3 attacks. That's cute. That's I'm trying to work in how that would make sense, because again, it's like with Zoro, he likes to like make a note on a wall and stuff. Like he can cut stuff with it. So I'm like, a crit kind of doesn't allow her to have the maneuverability for that, but or like the flexibility. But I still think that having that option of her being able to
I think if all of her strikes hit, she should just be able to do that. I mean, I think that's not bad.
I just feel like yeah, if you just say all 3 of my strikes hit, so I make an N, that's not really like an ability you can do. That's just saying this is the outcome of what I was able to accomplish. That's why I'm like, it would be nice if there was like a trigger that she gets to choose, like this effect. If it's like on a person or an animal, I'd be like, that's branded. Like I would love for her to be like, you could do it like like on like an enemy, and they just permanently have a scar of your initial on their arm or on their chest. I was like, even
remember me,
or like I was like, man, imagine like doing that like out of combat, because I was thinking like this could be done something she can do at will out of combat. And during combat it has to be like triggered.
For sure.
But then like imagine like she's just talking to someone and she could just do that to like their forehead, just be like, remember me, and then just little N on their forehead, then she just go away.
Wild.
Be kind of crazy. That N for nobody. But yeah, so I love making like personalized options for people. I think it's so much fun. I think people have a lot of fun with it. I think the players feel like, because again, it's one of those things where you building a cool build is fun and all, and it's nice to see when you do that, right? When you're a player and you watch someone build a cool build and you see what they can do, but once they do it, I'm the kind of person who, it's cool the first time, but once I see you do it, I am in no way inspired to go make that exact build just so I can do that exact same thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's the downside with that 5e mentality, is you're always building because you're always looking for the next best thing, but eventually you're either going to have tried or seen all the meta.
Yeah.
Like, so at the end of the day, like, what are you getting out of it when you do something really cool? It's like, how often do you actually get to do something that no one's seen before?
And honestly, I genuinely believe the meta is so, you miss out on so much when that's what you see, when that's what you focus on, when that's what you're trying to embody is just what everybody else is doing. Like the creativity that you can have, the way you can pull things out of nowhere, that I love being able to watch the player's mind think and explore and expand beyond just the meta. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's a cool combo, yeah, it's dope, yeah, it's this and that, coffee luck this and whatever, the cheese grater and all it's cool, but like, honestly, it's
I came up with a pretty nasty solution for the cheese grater, like for DMs.
Oh yeah,
pretty fucking bad too. It's a nice little trap. You get your party to get into it, and essentially, well, I won't go into all the details because you could trigger this however you want, but essentially you trap the party in a cylindrical room, and they either do or don't know that it's a cylindrical room, but they walk in and the room is cylindrical around them like that, right?
Yeah.
So like walking into a knocked over Pringles can.
Right.
And that's exactly what it is. The entire room is basically like a knocked over Pringles can that they walk into.
Okay. Does that mean only or two directions will cause you to?
Yeah, it's not like a
rotate?
sphere. Yeah.
Okay.
But the idea is what they don't know is once they get into this room, long story short, this room's on top of a hill. You cast spike growth on the inside. And then you kick that bitch down the hill. Fuck your cheese grater. That right there is like the rock tumbler from fucking hell.
That's wild.
Can you imagine that? That's tumbling down a hill, right? So the whole room is turning and they're tumbling inside of a cylindrical room that has spiked growth. Fuck your cheese grater. That's all I'm saying.
You better have levitation or something, bro.
That's good luck trying to cast anything while you're flying around the room, being slapped up against walls and being constantly taking damage.
Although it'd be kind of sick if somebody was able to pull out like Tensor's floating disc, it can just like jump on it real quick and like surf the way down.
But it can't go that fast. Tensor's disc has a speed, and if this thing is rolling too fast, it's gonna catch up to the disc.
It's literally that's the thing is it's like it's the speed if you're moving it, but if it's like it's moving based off of gravity, I would think that it would just fall, right?
No, I mean not necessarily, because it's not gonna slide. You get it. You get it. It's just gonna float there. First off, it only floats there, and then you can move it at a speed. But once you do it, the room you're in still going at speed. It doesn't have momentum. It's not like it's going with you. And even if it does, it's not going to keep up that momentum.
That's like saying if you're in a car and you throw something out, it's not going to keep moving forward. It's still going to keep moving forward.
But Tensor's disc is different though. Like Tensor's disc isn't like that,
it's not attached to anything. It's just floating.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say that Tensor's disc is going to go at that speed. I don't think it's going to just be like floating there inside this moving room.
Well,
at the same speed at this. I don't think it would do that. It
would just not touch the ground, but it would do what because what's honestly happening is the character is moving like this.
All I'm saying is that I don't believe that Tensor Speed would do that, because then you could basically use it as a snowboard. Because there's nothing stopping you from doing it on the side of a hill and then riding it down the hill, but that's not what it's used for.
The only difference is it's the log speed, because no matter what's happening, the character's moving at the log speed. In every one of these scenarios, the character is moving at the log speed.
But I don't
and the disc will be moving at the log speed regardless.
I don't know if it would though. I don't know. That's interesting.
Because then it would leave the log. Because if
it would just get hit on the side of it. Because again, it's like if you cast it and then something ran into it, that's essentially what's happening. The log is still moving faster than it and you, because you're still being hit by the log. You're not stationary in the center of it. You're still technically on the side. So no matter what, the log is still going to overpower both you and the spell.
That would be the question: is what is the disc repelling off of?
The ground, like the ground outside of the room. The room isn't the ground.
See, that's.
But again, even with you aren't floating, right? Even if you were to cast it, the room is still moving. Even
I could already cast levitate on myself.
Levitate might work, but then there's the speed issue, because you can only levitate and move at a certain speed, and this thing won't stop moving. So still, the moment you cast levitate, it's going to immediately smash you up against the wall and then bring you with it. Because the wall is still moving, because basically it acts like a wall that's moving at you.
Theoretically fair.
All I'm saying is like this is how I overcome people. If you want to give me the cheese grater bullshit, if you want to sit there with your monk and drag someone through this, I'm just going to shove you in a room, cast this, and kick you down a hill and say, have fun. Because I just think it's hilarious. I think that visual, I don't think doing it is like all that great. I don't really care about like torturing or punishing my players. But just imagine the visual. Like, just imagine this trap that they set off. The door locks behind them. The evil like person's voice comes out and just, you thought you had me, and then all of a sudden you see growth coming from all of the walls, spikes and tethers and everything surround the entire wall, and then suddenly the room shifts and begins to turn.
I imagine this is like a Indiana Jones trap, like the big ball.
You could make it like skill checks where it's like you have to run with it, and if you can't run, like you take like more damage, and then if you fall, it's like basically you're gonna get hella fucked up.
Wild.
But that's my solution to the cheese grater is that, because I think that would be fucking hilarious.
Wild, wild, wild.
Anyway, that was enough of a tangent. So, which breakdown are you looking for on TikTok? I need to get through those. I'm one of these weeks. I'm just gonna sit down and bust them all out. This week.
Yeah, 100%.
This was a heavy week, but I will be getting back onto TikTok and doing more. And I just don't know which one you tagged me in that you're waiting. But I have been doing them quite a bit recently, and I'm really happy with the rate at which even the other creators seem to enjoy my responses. So
Yeah,
I'm really liking just the general, not the community, but the just the general environment. That so,
yeah.
the most recent one by level 20 DM, that doesn't help me. All right, well, I'll have to go look it up and see which one that is. But yeah, I'll probably get to those next week. If I don't this weekend, I have some plans this weekend. So we have a community stream planned.
We do.
I will talk to you about that this weekend.
Yeah.
And tomorrow, actually Monday, we'll start the new community stream.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. So I have a social thing tomorrow, and then I'll have some time Sunday and Monday. So if I'm not streaming, I'll be working on TikTok stuff.
Slay. Excellent.
You should stream it like you do. Stream what?
Stream you creating the TikToks?
What was the first item? It was what do we call it? The chromatic lens.
Yes, the chromatic lens.
Yeah. An artificer lens, a single lens to their goggle, their set of goggles. So the lens will be an arcane focus that does a couple things, and then there'll be a secondary lens that you can find, and then that will do something different. And then if you put them on goggles, you can do basically all of it combined. And then there'll be a bigger set, which I'm gonna make like those like goggles that have all of the different lenses that you can like swap in and out, like, you know, just on the fly. So I'm actually gonna create a set that's gonna have 6 lenses total. Stream me breaking down the TikTok. Ooh, I could do that. I might do that on I might be able to do that on Monday or Sunday if I have the energy.
Okay.
Doing some TikTok breakdowns. It was really fun to do, you know, like the research and write it up on stream.
Sure.
You know, actually go record them. I do want to do some more game streams now that I have the green screen. I want to get more into that. So I'll probably hook up the green screen tomorrow or Sunday as well. Do some breakdown stuff.
For sure.
Yep. All right. Well, this was successful. I really like this series. We will probably continue doing it. We've only gotten through 4 items. But
we've got some good ones.
Did we didn't come up with a name for this damn thing. That was the problem. The bow sword. We didn't actually name it.
Let me look. You are correct. We don't have a name yet.
So we have a sword that essentially has crossbow. It's pretty much just what it is. It's an arm-strapped sword with a crossbow. I wonder what is. Let's see. Ooh. So baldric is like the belt that you would normally see worn to like hold a sword. You know, it's like the shoulder strapped belt that usually holds your sword instead of like the actual
Would you say it's
A baldric. So I'm kind of
Interesting.
thinking, because we were talking about like it being strapped to your arm, so we could use baldric in the name, like the baldric blade or the baldric bolt.
Baldric bolt blade.
Trying to see if I can find any kind of naming scheme that
How do you
makes
spell
more
baldric?
sense. Ooh, here we go. What is this? Nope. Nope, nope, nope. Good day, Huilepa. Hopefully you have a good rest of your day. Going to rest at 7:30 a.m. Yeah, go sleep.
Oh, bracer bolt.
Ooh, wait a second here. What is this? What is this called? Ooh. What about the ballistic blade?
Ballistic blade. I like that. I like that a lot.
What is it called? Spada? It sounded like a cool name. Ballista Spada. Sounds. But yeah, apparently Germany had a like a crossbow sword.
Really? Would this qualify as a
We could just
an ability name? Like it's named after what it does slash is?
Yeah, this would be like, yeah. We could just call it the Ballista Espada. Kind of like that.
I do too.
Let me see what it's. Oh, that's just the Spanish word for sword. So it literally just means gun sword. Ballista Espada.
Fire.
Let's do it.
Ballista Espada.
I'll type it in chat. Cool name. I think anybody would be fine with that name.
Very cool. Very cool.
Ooh, is it a simpler martial weapon? That's a good idea. Probably, I mean, it straps to the arm, but it's about the size of a short sword, so probably martial.
I'm gonna say martial.
Yeah.
Let me see.
Especially because I feel like simple weapons you would expect to need less training. This one definitely seems more specialized. I like that though. I like that name.
Yeah, martial weapon.
Yeah, we'll do martial weapon. Not bad. Not bad.
I'm here for it.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's another successful episode of Image to Item. Hopefully more to come. Keep those ideas coming. We are going to keep that chat alive in the community ideas in Discord. So make sure to post more images as time goes by. We're keeping a whole list, so we'll purge every now and again to keep the list fresh, but we're keeping track of what we already have, so no worries. Let's see. Next week we are going to talk about the history of magical identification. Maybe that will be the title. Like how to call things magical. What is a magical creature? All that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But that'll be next week. What can the good folks look forward to on Monday?
Monday, we are getting back to a submission from Cosmic. This is going to be the dual string. What is it called?
Oh, the dual string bow.
The twin string. I hate this name. It's such a tongue twister. The twin string bling compound bow.
Twin string bling. All right, so that's going to be on Monday. We will be reviewing that item. Actually, Soul, surprising enough that you say that. So before you showed up, one of the first things that we said was that this thing looks more like a connection to a mech arm, like a Gundam arm, than it did, which is why we decided to go with it being strapped to your arm, because we were talking about it being like actually like a like you would like take off, kind of like hooks, like Captain Hook, take off your hand and like insert it. So that's why we ended up going with the attachment to the arm instead of it being like a mechanical connection. So funny you say that, because we had the same idea. All right, but I think we are going to end it there. I hope everybody enjoyed the stream. I hope you had some fun with us creating these items. It is a blast doing this. It's nice to kind of show you our process behind the scenes and how we do things. But we also will be very happy to get back to normal streaming with our normal content of D&D homebrew and then doing more of like a history of next week. So if you like this, let us know and keep those items coming, because this will be an ongoing series every now and again. I wouldn't even mind doing this like once a month, like just rotating this in every couple Fridays.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. But if you do see us online outside of Mondays and Fridays, feel free to hop in chat and say hello. We always appreciate you keeping us company. You can usually find Kage on Tuesdays, streaming some behind the scenes stuff, some coding stuff. And then you can find me randomly throughout the week or on weekends playing games, more casual streams, just kind of get, kind of a behind the scenes, get to know me kind of thing when we're not doing D&D stuff. So
indeed.
Hope everybody enjoyed. I think we're going to cut it here. Is there anybody worth rating tonight?
Let's
I know Mind's
go.
Eye was on earlier.
Yes, they were hanging out and just chatting earlier. Let me take a
So we'll see if there's anybody to raid, but otherwise we're going to be cutting it here. I hope everybody had a great week, and I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend ahead of you. There's nobody, huh?
All
right.
Gone.
Well, that's all right. I guess we will cut it there. I will do one check myself just to make sure I don't have anybody that I could raid. But I think you're right. I mean, Dark Viper's on, but that's not really our. But I think he's not really our stuff. I mean, I love watching him, but I mean, he already has 300. He's not really our stuff. Oh, he's on the marathon anyways. I mean, he already has 300. Who cares? All right. Well, thank you everybody for showing up. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll be back on Monday, but I will probably be back on Sunday, if not tomorrow night, for some streaming. So for some games. So I hope to see you guys there. It's 1:44 a.m. Successful stream, I would say so. All right, y'all. Everybody who is past midnight, go get some fucking sleep. Otherwise, otherwise, I hope you guys have a great and fantastic weekend. We'll see you guys on Monday. Cheers.
Deuces.